Thunder Below, the USS Barb Revolutionizes Submarine Warfare in World War II, by Eugene B. Fluckey, Rear Admiral, U.S. Navy, retired. Narrated by Corey Snow. Preface. This is the history of the U.S. submarine Barb while she was under my command during World War II. It is written in the sense of the lively non-fiction that it was. Reconstructed conversations abound to breathe life into the story. These have a factual basis from the written log, reports, messages, letters, notes, and oral histories made during and after World War II, stories that the Navy Department's Public Relations Office asked me to write for their publications, reunions, interviews, and an illegal diary kept by a shipmate. One crew member who reviewed the manuscript remarked, "You must have had a tape recorder." Regarding the events depicted on other submarines, their stories are taken from reports, both Japanese and their own, personal conversations with the captains involved, and consummate knowledge of how they operated. There are two divisions for the Japanese commands. The naval warships made voluminous after-action reports that depicted the gallant and courageous fights to save their ships. The actual names of the captains and the convoy commanders are used where made available. The individual merchant ships' actions were derived from my personal observation during the battles, interrogation of Japanese prisoners we picked up, and reports made to the shipping companies that were obtained by the Japanese Department of War History. Our outstanding Wolfpack commander, Admiral Elliot Laughlin, verified the Barb's actions on 3 patrols. Conversations between Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz and Admiral Charles Lockwood, the submarine force commander, were related to me while I was Nimitz's personal aide when he was Chief of Naval Operations after the war. All messages, letters, and the diary are verbatim. My extensive research occupied over 10 years. Japanese officer friends assisted me while I was in Tokyo and afterward through correspondence. This enabled me to unfold the factual Japanese side of events where known. In June 1991, I conducted my research in China. My objective in Thunder Below has been to provide the reader with the best and most complete account of every attack, whether against land or sea targets, as reported by those concerned. There are still mysteries to unravel due to the disappearance of certain records, but I have not fabricated this history. I was there. When I joined the Barb in January 1944, war with Japan was in the limited offensive stage, Japan having reached the maximum limits of its empire. U.S. submarine warfare was to be intensified to strangle Japan. The Central Pacific Drive was ready to begin, as was the movement of the Southwest Pacific Forces into New Guinea. The South Pacific Forces had taken Guadalcanal, the North Pacific Forces were to take the Aleutians. Now we would begin the tightening of the steel belt around Japan. The Chinese army could not be deployed, for it was engaged in a major Japanese offensive in China. The overall Japanese and Allied forces were relatively equal. Unscathed, U.S. production was steamrollering along at flank speed. Time 1953. Everyone jumped up in alarm. I made a dash for the conning tower. The ominous sounds, continuous rubbing, clanking, and scraping noises against the hull had everyone in a tizzy. Are we in a minefield? Dave, what have you seen through the periscope? Nothing but a couple of sampans at a distance. I took another 360-degree swing. We're towing 2 red flags astern. Pass the word to the crew before they use up all the remaining oxygen that we're caught in a fishnet. Start the fathometer. 46 fathoms, sir. I'll stop. Starks, take her down easy to 150 feet. Maybe we can get out through the bottom of the net. At worst, we'll drag the red flags out of sight. With their movement, some fishermen may think they've caught a whale. The clankings and scrapings continued. Bob and I conferred. Sounding 45 fathoms. Frank, ease her down to 200 feet. Maintain a slight down angle. We'll try backing her clear. 200 feet. 2 degrees down angle. All back full. Try to keep her between 150 and 200 feet. We'll back for 10 minutes. Time 2020. The clankings stopped, then the rubbings and the scrapings. We were clear. Sighs of relief. Time 21:31. What luck. We were caught in another net, the same noises grinding against the hull. Stand by to surface. Arm the 4-inch gun crew with knives ready to come up to the bridge and cut us free. Time 21:41. Surfaced. The Barb was covered. Bridge, shears, and deck were encased in a strong net of line as thick as your thumb. In the last of the twilight, we lay to. The cutting party, augmented by the rest of the gun crews, climbed all over the topside, unleashing the Barb once more. I noted that piles of clippings were passed down below as souvenirs. The material of the nets intrigued me because it was so difficult to cut. It was made of neither twine nor hemp and was 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Prying a bit apart, I found it was made of an exceedingly tough rolled wax paper. The whole net was buoyed with wood and weighted with lead pellets and rocks. Quite ingenious. "Hey, Captain, we got a problem," Swish called from the deck aft. "Not so loud. We have 4 sampans at about 3,000 yards. Come forward." "Sir, this net is wrapped tight around the propellers. We can't pull it loose. Someone has to dive over the side, follow the net down, and clear the screws." "Wow. In this 34-degree water? Who's our best swimmer?" "Traville Houston." "Has he done any diving?" "Has he? You know that 100-foot diving tower at Pearl where we trained to escape from a submarine? Well, he's the only one I know of who's dived in at the top, swum down to the bottom, and back up again without any outside assistance." "Sounds like a human fish. As he's the first loader for the 4-inch gun, he's somewhere down on deck with you. Both of you come up to the bridge." They arrived. Houston volunteered. "I can do it, sir. I need to put on my flannel underwear and a diver's belt with a knife. Swish can hand pump air to the face mask. The props are 15 to 18 feet below the surface. It'll be very dark down there." We couldn't use lights because of the sampans, but we could bring the props closer to the surface by flooding the bow tanks. That should bring the props up to about 7 feet below the surface. Fortunately, the Barb was only 1,000 miles below the Arctic Circle, so this dim twilight might last for another hour. "Houston, you should be able to see the shape of the props. Now let's get cracking and bring some towels and blankets up." In jig time, Houston was over the side and clawing his way down the net to the props. 5 minutes later, his head bobbed up. He was hauled on board. Trouble. "Swish, the airline is too cumbersome. Let's use the mask plug. I need a few more dives." "Good God, it's cold." He dove in again. In 4 minutes, he reappeared, gulped a few deep breaths, and disappeared again. After several more performances, I became worried and told Swish to bring him aboard. Houston had now been in the water almost 30 minutes. Swish gave 2 jerks on the tether line, and Houston's head bobbed up alongside. Swish wanted him out, but Houston objected. "Captain, he's almost finished cutting the net loose and wants to finish the job now." "Okay, but he's lost a lot of body heat. It's dangerous. Tell him not to overdo it." Down he went for almost 5 minutes, came up, gulped air, and went down again. I sent for Doc Donnelly. "Doc, get down on deck and get Houston aboard. He'll kill himself or get pneumonia." As Doc headed aft, Houston emerged holding his fingers on high in a V, but he was too far gone to climb aboard. The men on deck formed a human chain and lifted him up bodily. He was shaking so badly he could hardly move. Wrapped in swaddling blankets, he was passed down through the after torpedo room hatch and on to his bunk. Doc started working on him with medicinal brandy. We cast the slashed net over the side and tested each shaft at slow speed. No noises. The Barb was ready to answer bells. At dawn, before my customary trip to the bridge at the end of Navigator's Twilight, I dropped by Houston's bunk to see how he was doing. Doc was resting in a chair next to him and motioned for me to be silent. Then he gave a thumbs up as our diver slept. I tiptoed away, happy. 30 August, time 12:15. Received an ultra message on a convoy departing Takao, southern Formosa, heading for Manila. Ed swung into action, ordering the pack to an intercept spot. At full speed, we headed for the Bashi Channel, 50 miles south of Formosa. All of us were forced down a few times by planes. At 0120, 31 August, we sighted smoke and received a contact report from the Queenfish up ahead. We were receiving radar interference from 3 other subs. Tuck took the Barb to flank speed and headed for the smoke until Plot could give us a better intercepting course. The Commodore soon joined me on the bridge. "Ed, Queenfish is some 6 miles ahead. With this 3/4 moon, she will attack submerged. Tunny is about 5 miles on our starboard beam. From radar interference, we have one of Ben's Buster's subs up ahead. She has probably sent a contact report to bring her sisters into the ballpark. Stand by for a circus with 2 wolf packs jumping on the same convoy. This is an open area with Donk's Devils gone, so it's free-for-all. Concur, Gene. I can't coordinate the other pack. This one isn't in the books. But based on our positions, have Barb be the starboard flanker. Time 0143. Radar has a night flyer coming in fast. Ed dropped down with the speed of a gazelle before Tuck's voice boomed out, "Clear the bridge! Dive! Dive!" Other gazelles, quartermaster, lookouts, myself, followed with Tuck last, snapping the hatch shut. No bombs fell, but our plane was circling. Radio reported, "Queenfish attacking." 40 minutes later, 4 torpedo explosions brightened the sky, setting the 4,700-ton tanker Chiyoda Maru on fire. Time 0240. At moonset, the tanker sank. The Barb surfaced, for we had no contact with the 9-ship, 5-escort convoy. Then we sighted a plane 3 miles astern after another sub, but we did not dive because we had to move fast on the surface to regain contact. From listening to some 25 to 30 assorted depth charges and bombs being dropped, we knew the Queenfish was being held down and the convoy evading northeastward. Several planes were working within 3 to 4 miles. Time 0526. We sighted ships and went to battle stations' torpedoes. The gongs silenced the distant depth charges. Ed joined me and I explained the setup. We had unknown subs ahead, left, right, and astern, so we're in prime position. There were 8 ships left, 5 escorts and 8 planes patrolling. We were a starboard flanker, but the enemy had changed his base course from 90 degrees to 160 degrees. Zigging, they were an hour away. We'd go deep and fast to work into a center position. Time 0624. In the starboard column were a freighter and a tanker. In the center column, freighter, tanker, freighter. In the port column, tanker, tanker, freighter. A mine layer was the lead escort ahead of and between the starboard and center columns. Our position ahead of and between the center and port column was a dream. We made ready all tubes. Bob, a few more minutes and we can wipe out the center column and get the leading tanker in the port column. Time 0625. Signal flags going up on the escort. One of the subs had been sighted. Sound reports torpedoes running, headed toward us. Bob, keep JP sonar on those torpedoes. I'm sure they're from a sub, not the escort, so they won't be set deep. Time 0626. Wham! Wham! 2 hits just blew up the escort just as she was running up signal flags for a turn movement. Sound reports torpedoes coming right at us. I kept the periscope down so we wouldn't be hit and told Sound to let me know when they passed over us or if any sounded erratic. The whole formation changed course to the east. Damn! If only we could have shot first. Wham! Wham! 2 more torpedo explosions. Then through the hush came the eerie, high-speed whine of torpedoes passing directly overhead. Ed said, "Gene, thank God we're not on the surface." Ed, those must have come from my classmate, Eli Reich, in the Sea Lion. He always shoots a nestful. With success. Time 0630. Bearing is on the largest ship leading the center column. Angle on the bow is 10 degrees starboard. The lead ship of the starboard column is missing. Max, mind your torpedo data computer. We'll shoot the stern tubes at this ship in a minute as soon as we pull out. Use the same ship speed as you had before. Range will be about 750 yards. Phone talker, tell Jackson and Raglan to take 4 cases of beer out of the officer's shower and put them in the cooler. Muffled cheers were heard throughout the boat. Smiles were seen all around the conning tower. Time 0633. Up scope. Bearing, mark. Down. Angle on the bow, 70 starboard. Range 800 yards. Final bearing and shoot. Time 0634. Final bearing, mark. Set. Fire 7. Fire 8. Fire 9. The Barb jolted as the torpedoes whooshed out on their lethal path. JP sonar, get on those torpedoes. Sonar reports all torpedoes hot, straight, and normal. We had a nice overlap astern of the freighter, with the tanker in the port column about 500 yards beyond, so if they had increased speed, she'd catch the first torpedo. 10 seconds to hitting. Time 0635. Wham! Wham! Beautiful! The first hit the stern of the freighter, the second amidships at the after end of the superstructure. Wham! The third hit caught the tanker amidships. Suddenly, we heard a click, bang, as a depth bomb went off astern. A steady string of explosions followed. The depth charge indicator shows depth charge pattern astern and explosions all around. Then came a muttered, "It's a wonder it doesn't show tilt. Rig ship for depth charge. Stand by watertight doors." Time 0640. Higgins, rudder amidships. Steady as you go. Up scope. The freighter is upending, sinking stern first. Quick, Ed, take a look. Gene, she's going down, gone! Down periscope. What's left of the convoy is swung around to the northwest, well beyond the range of the torpedoes. Looks like they're returning to Takao. We couldn't surface with the air cover peppering the area with bombs, but we secured from depth charge and battle stations. We would splice the main brace at 1100 to give the beer a chance to cool. We set course westward in case the convoy turned south again. Before we turned in, Ed and I went to find out from the ship recognition manual what ship we had sunk and what we had damaged. It had been a long night, and we needed to rest. Anything might happen. Unbeknown to us, the Tunny was making an approach on the same freighter and was almost ready to shoot when our torpedoes slammed into her. What a disappointment for them. I took a swing through the boat to have a few words with those members of the crew who were not lined up at the heads holding their water. It had been too long a night. In the after-torpedo room, cheers rose as I entered. The place was humming with activity and noise as they reloaded torpedoes in the tubes. Buell Murphy and Sidney Shord were directing their Huskies, Houston, Richard Maxwell, and Rourke, while gunner's mate Joseph Petrosinas was already changing the empty torpedo skids into bunks. As I went forward into the maneuvering room, Ezra Davis lifted one finger. "Captain, one down, 4 to go?" "Well, if that damaged tanker sinks, it would help." Turning to Dallas Bowden and Norman Larson, I asked, "How's our battery?" "Almost a full can, sir. We topped off until we dove." The after-engine room was blessedly quiet submerged. Chief Franklin Williams, Walter Price, and Clarence Spencer were busy replacing an injection valve, so I didn't tarry other than to tell them planes would probably keep us down for at least 4 hours. Knowing that Ed was waiting, I buzzed through the forward engine room where Elliman, Norman Wiersch, Rudolph Schmidt, and William Whitt were standing easy. "Whitt, we want to make your first patrol in the Barb exciting for you." They all laughed at his response. "Thanks a heap, Captain. Will it be like this every day?" Back in the wardroom, Ed was leafing through the manual. Using bow and stern shapes, superstructure, and positions of funnels, king posts, and masts, one could find the class of ship. The freighter we sunk turned out to be the Okuni Maru, 5,633 gross tons, built in 1936. The tanker we hit was the Riko Maru, 9,181 gross tons. The Okuni Maru's lifeboats had yellow and black striped sails. Exhausted, we all decided to skip breakfast in favor of sack time and sweet dreams. If only there weren't that frequent drumming against the hull of bombs and depth charges. Time 10:37. A closer bomb explosion banging against the hull brought us all out of our bunks. Max, the watch officer, passed the word that air cover had intensified. None were on us, yet all were dropping bombs at intervals and returning for reloads. Time 11:15. "Now hear this. In honor of your splendid performance last night and this dawn, which resulted in the sinking of the freighter Okuni Maru and the damaging of the tanker Riko Maru, which I hope has since sunk, I beseech all hands to follow our ancient naval custom and splice the main brace. Your most capable chief of the boat, Swish Saunders, with the doughty assistance of Turnage and Jack Kerrigan, has released 4 cases of beer from the cooler to be slaughtered. Doc Donnelly is offering his medicinal whiskey to anyone who prefers such to beer. For the beer, I propose 3 cheers. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray!" Tongues hanging to their knees, the crew made a mad dash for the control room. According to Tomzik, "This beer is so good I'm taking a sip every couple minutes to make it last. All hands in high spirits and the sea stories are really flying. I'm wearing boots, but we'll soon get into my bathing suit if they keep it up. Boy, oh boy, what a show. They got hit from all sides and didn't know what way to turn, so they went home. And they're still dropping bombs and charges. One came steaming by and dropped 18 and nothing flat. Then a squadron of planes swooped down and let go their load. Counted 96 so far near us. Gene says distant thunder below is a very pleasant sound. I'm telling you that even a near one that just shakes us up a bit sounds like putting your head underwater in a bathtub and somebody hitting the side with a sledgehammer. It's hot as hell with sweat bubbling out. The air is foul and getting hard to breathe. I feel like I just ran 5 miles, all winded and so sleepy that I could fall asleep standing up. The Japanese post-action report from the captain of the Rico Maru shows that he capably handled the damage control on his crippled tanker. The Barb's single hit amidships blew a gaping hole 20 feet in diameter, but fortunately his ship was in ballast. There was no explosion or fire. He quickly righted her by counterflooding. With her engines aft, he had lost none of his power, even with the drag due to the yawning hole. The big Rico had more speed than the smaller or older freighters. Messages reveal the scramble returning to Takao. Their convoy commander was lost when the Sea Lion sank the lead escort, the mine layer Shirataka. The Rico Maru radioed her need for immediate dry docking on arrival. The Takao Naval District requested her location. They had received a message at 0700 stating that the Mi-15 convoy was under submarine attack at latitude 2111 north, longitude 12111 east. A hunter-killer group of 6 ships patrolling off Takao had been dispatched to sink the sub. This group was expected to be on the scene by afternoon. Just before sunset, the Rico arrived at Takao. The dry dock was open and pilots moved the Rico in. On the blocks, with the dock pumped dry, floodlights revealed that the damage was more extensive than they had thought. Many spaces were leaking through cracked plates. Repairs would take over 3 months. Postscript. The air raids of 10, 11, and 12 October 1944 caused no damage to the Rico Maru. Due to more urgent work, a temporary patch was installed and the captain was ordered to take his ship up Formosa Strait to the shipyard at Keelung, Formosa to complete repairs. He left Takao at full speed without an escort, his ship leaking. The 150-mile trek was a continuous fight to save the ship. Just before dawn, as she was gradually sinking, he drove her hard aground on the rocks outside of Keelung. She was never bombed after she was beached. On 6 March 1945, the Japanese gave up all attempts to salvage her. After World War II, the Joint Army-Navy Assessment Committee assessed the Rico Maru as a marine casualty instead of giving proper credit to the Barb for damaging her. A reassessment in 1956 credited aircraft with sinking her, though she had never been attacked or damaged by aircraft after the Barb's torpedo hit. Chapter 7. Into the Fire. 31 August. Time 13:49. Captain, smoke sighted to the southwest. I'm changing course to head that way, but haven't speeded up. Lots of planes still scouring the area. Sea is calm, visibility perfect. Hooking my left arm over the periscope handles, I made a fast swing around the sky, searching for nearby planes. Bob, Ed, and I estimated the black smoke to be about 7 miles away. We could tell from the smoke trail on a flat sea with no wind that his course was a bit south of west. At the torpedo data computer, Max inserted an average target speed of approximately 9 knots. After whirling a few dials, he calculated that the Barb should head southwest for 5 hours at full speed to close to a firing position. Minor adjustments would be made as we refined target course and speed. That would leave us with a flat battery if we were depth-charged. A risky situation, but nothing ventured. Oh, hell, let's go for it. We went to a depth of 150 feet to avoid any planes spotting our wake in the glassy sea. I told the crew we had a far-off target, that we were all tired, and that we would slow once an hour to come up for a look. Except for the watch, they were to stand easy on all stations and try to sleep at their posts. I told the helmsman to wake us in an hour. Ed went below to the wardroom to flake out on the transom. The tracking party curled up on the steel conning tower deck and slept like babes. Time 1500. Reveille for the tracking party. We went up to 60 feet to check, then went back down. We were plugging along. Next check, 1600. Jane, this is the screwiest approach I've ever seen in all my years as a training officer. Ed, chalk it off to the unusual. It may get screwier. As the remnants of the Mi-15 convoy returned to Takao for protection, counteraction against our 2 wolf packs was underway. Captain Kozu Suzuki, commander of the 45th Minesweeper Squadron, happened to be aboard the Hinode Maru, Minesweeper number 20, patrolling off Takao. The Naval District Commander relayed the Mi-15 Convoy's 0700 message, under attack by submarine at 2111 North, 12111 East, and ordered Suzuki's hunter-killer decoy attack group to sink the submarine. He headed his force toward the location using a formation that had been extremely successful in luring submarines into a hunter-killer trap. His tactics were to station two special low-profile anti-sub escorts 300 meters broad on each bow, one of his sleeper anti-sub escorts 5 kilometers on the port beam of his decoy flagship, the Hinode Maru, and the other two sleeper escorts 5 kilometers on each quarter. The Hinode was a huge wooden ocean-going trawler that had been built in 1930 with a forecastle, mast, well deck, high bridge and funnel, and poop deck. She gave the appearance of being a much larger ship. Converted to a naval minesweeper in 1941 after Pearl Harbor, she had her crew augmented to 28 men when losses due to subs became serious. Assigned as a hunter-killer decoy, her extra crew became lookouts. Thus, she was a perfect convert to minesweeping, and her shallow draft and coal-fired boilers made her perfect for use as a smoking decoy. Time 12:30. Hinode Maru lookout sighted 3 vessels with black and yellow vertically striped sails. These were lifeboats from the Okuni Maru. The Hinode took 57 men on board. Time 13:30. The Hinode Maru sighted minesweeper number 21, one of 5 escorts for the 10 merchant ships of the Mi-15 convoy, picking up survivors. The 57 men were then transferred. Time 16:15. The Sea Lion, still submerged, noted smoke growing larger. Then a mast appeared coming directly at her. Eli Reich started the approach, thinking she was a merchantman. Time 17:07. It's an anti-sub vessel, reports Captain Reich. High forecastle, poop, bridge structure, and stack. Deck gun mounted forward. A rangefinder located atop the pilot house. Steady course. Time 17:19. Fired 3 torpedoes at 1,500 yards, port track 135. At about hitting time, a lookout pointed. Target turned left and headed at us. Went deep and rigged for depth charge. He passed down our port side, crossed our stern, and dropped 2 depth charges on our starboard quarter, then went away. Maybe he's not sure he had a sub. Time 1800. Heard 10 underwater explosions. Time 1700. Reveille for the Barb tracking party. The target had changed course to northwest, which would help us close. We would still have to hurry to reach a firing point. Next look was in half an hour. Time 17:30. Our target was a small freighter with 2 escorts on his quarters. Mast, funnel, mast, 3-island superstructure. Man battle stations torpedoes. All ahead full. Make ready tubes 4, 5, 6. Angle on the bow is about 90 degrees. Not sure how many escorts, for we can't waste time looking. After 4 hours of chasing, this is going to be a photo finish. I hope. Time 17:40. Have the electricians get me a battery gravity reading. Maneuvering room reports the battery gravity has dropped from 1250 to 1105. At 1080, the battery is flat and we stop, sir. Okay, hang in there. Max, how's your setup checking? TDC and plot are right on. Target course of 252 is correct within 1 degrees. Speed jibes to within 1/10 of a knot. In 10 minutes, we'll be at our closest possible shooting position, 1,200 yards. After that, the range opens and the firing bearing worsens. Sound reports that pinging well astern is diminishing. Time 17:50. Excellent. We've passed under the starboard quarter escort. The coast is clear. We have met the enemy, and he is ours. Shift 4 cases of beer from the shower to the cooler. Open the outer tube doors. Set torpedo depth at 4 feet. All ahead 1/3. Time for a look. Final bearing, Captain. From my crouched position, I flopped the scope handles down as they cleared the deck, glued my eye to the eyepiece, and rode it up till it was clear of the water. Something was wrong. I swung the scope around from side to side, withdrew my eye, blinked, and looked down again. I banged the handles against the scope in vain. Damn! Down scope! Gene, what's wrong? Ed, I can't see. There's something covering the scope. I don't know what it is or what's wrong. Time 17:53. Captain, range is steady. We've got to shoot or it'll open. Listen, Bob, same thing again, but this time raise the scope and dip it on my signal. Maybe we can shake whatever it is loose. Up scope. Nope, still there. Try again. Sir, range is opening slowly. We're losing bearing. I burst out laughing. Hey, we've encountered the latest fiendish anti-sub weapon of the Japanese, a patrolling bird. As the scope clears the water, he or she is there and lights on it, draping his or her tail over the slanting exit eyepiece. Let's foil it. Ed, control one scope while Bob controls the other. Bob, have your scope clear the water as a feint, a fraction before Ed's scope, which I'll use for shooting. Understood? Range is opening, 1,260 yards. Time 17:59. All ready. Up scopes. Camera, quick! Slapping it on the scope, I took a photo of the bird, took off the camera, and swung the scope to the target. Final bearing. Mark. Down scopes. Set. Fire 4. Whoosh. Jolt. Fire 5. Fire 6. Dick, what's the hitting time? 75 seconds, sir. Sonar has all torpedoes hot, straight, and normal. Ed, Bob, same deal on the scopes. I can't miss this. 15 seconds. Up scopes. His guns are manned fore and aft. There are about 15 lookouts dressed in white on a catwalk above the bridge. An officer is looking... Wham! My God, right under the bridge. Bodies are flying through the air. Wham! Water spout at the well deck. Wham! Under the forecastle. The gun crew's been blown overboard. The ship's breaking into a V. Quick, Ed, take a look. Everybody in the conning tower take a quick peek through one scope or the other. It was soon time to stop being spectators and check on the escorts. They were coming fast. We had no time for a down-the-throat shot. I had Paul take her deep, to 340 feet, using a 25-degree down angle. We moved at flank speed with full right rudder rigged for depth charges, silent running with all watertight doors closed tight. I had the sonars keep on different escorts and give us the bearing quickly whenever it was constant, meaning it was heading in to drop on us. It looked as though the crew of one of the sub-chasers was greasing up their depth charge racks. There was nothing to do now except have the yeoman break out our depth charge forms, which bureaucracy required. Time 18:04. Thunder below. None too close, 150 yards. Time 18:24. Sound reports help is arriving from the east and northwest, all pinging. Ed realized, I knew, that I had goofed and misjudged this one. That had been no small freighter. That was bait. I had never picked up any escorts but the two sub-chasers. The rest of the escorts were sleepers and probably first team. We lacked enough juice in the battery to fight them. I told Ed, I planned to tiptoe and get the hell out of here with a whole skin. Skipper, you do just that. We crept out at minimum speed, heading northwest on the assumption the first team would not search where they had just come from. I had the word passed for all hands to be quiet, no unnecessary talking, and to take off their shoes. Paul eased her down to 375 feet, concerned about the pressure on our thin-skinned sub, but we had been that deep before. We watched for leaks and any signs of the decks starting to rumple. Gradually, we pulled clear. The anti-sub group found something to their liking astern of us and pounded it with 58 depth charges. Darkness fell with a full moon and no clouds. As we surfaced with the group 5 miles astern on the horizon, 2 engines started charging the batteries. The other 2 on propulsion sped us westward, evading various small patrol craft, to a new scouting line that Ed set up. 1 September. After some 200 bombs and depth charges the day before, we looked forward to a peaceful interlude well clear of any enemy bomb sites. Studying the charts spread over the wardroom table, Ed wondered whether we had a good spot or were jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Commodore, only test and time will tell. Test and time told us to act like a yo-yo, evading air cover by diving and surfacing some 9 times during the day before dinner. It was exhausting being the fox for the hounds. Taking our leisure, we unfolded our napkins as a platter of steaks was served. Suddenly, left full rudder, all ahead flank! Captain, periscope starboard beam! Dashing to the bridge with my napkin tucked in my belt, I met Tuck, who had the situation well in hand. Chick, the officer of the deck, looked a bit nonplussed, almost shell-shocked. As he was the only officer not yet qualified as submarine watch officer, we put him on watch with Tuck as a backup. Thank God. I don't understand the psychology of it, but from my experience in peacetime battleships and destroyers, I became convinced that 3-dimensional operations are more demanding. Perhaps it's a David against Goliath syndrome, or God helps those who help themselves, or the loneliness of knowing there's no outside help that quickens one's reaction time, but it's there. No one, regardless of rank or other experience, becomes qualified in subs until he achieves that. For one hole sinks a submarine. Good evasion, Tuck. Return to course. After dinner, Max relieved Tuck and Chick. Dusk was approaching. I wolfed down half my dinner before joining Max on the bridge. Dawn and dusk, the most dangerous times for a surfaced sub due to the fading visibility, normally found me sitting topside searching the sky and nearby waters for floating mines or periscopes. That evening the sky was sprinkled with cumulus clouds, much like a field of cotton. Time 1848. Max's strident, "Plane astern! Clear the bridge! Dive! Dive!" had me landing in the conning tower before the klaxons sounded. Lookouts came tumbling down, and Max deftly slapped the hatch shut and gave a powerful spin to the wheel, tightly engaging its locking lugs. "Up scope, left full rudder." As the scope came out of its well, we heard a tremendous roar as the plane passed over us, but no bombs fell. Peering through the eyepiece, I saw that the plane was heading straight for the Tunny 4 miles ahead. I could see the Tunny still on the surface. She hadn't seen him. "Gene, can't we warn her?" Ed asked. It was too late. He was dropping bombs already. As the Tunny submerged, we heard the rumble of explosions, and I saw the Tunny's stern rising. I told Ed to take a quick look. A bomb must have exploded right under her tail. Ed backed off and shook his head. "It looks bad, and that plane is still around." Time 1952. I watched through the periscope as another salvo of bombs landed on the Tunny. Enemy aircraft had marked her position with float lights, and another string appeared to indicate her course on diving. Then they dropped a green magnesium parachute flare on her position. "Gene, try to contact the Tunny by sonar," Ed said. "Tell her to stay deep and that she's marked with float lights and flares. We'll let her know by sonar when the coast is clear and it's safe to surface. Meanwhile, Barb will stand by nearby to render assistance." Kerrigan failed to make sonar contact. Time 2200. Air cover cleared out. No lights around. We surfaced. Couldn't make radar contact on the Tunny. We also tried radio, but no contact. Time 2110. The Queenfish, on the ball as usual, made contact on a convoy at the astonishing range of 34,000 yards. Ever a team player, Elliot quickly sent us a contact report. Since the Barb was miles astern, he crossed the northeasterly base course of the zigzagging ships to attack from the port flank. 40 minutes later, the Barb made contact and moved in to attack from the starboard flank when the Queenfish finished. Time 22:31. The Queenfish fired 4 torpedoes, ranged 3,200 yards and 95-degree port track. The Kashi sighted the torpedo's wake passing to starboard and ordered a 45-degree course change to port toward the Queenfish. 1 torpedo hit in the Omoroyama Maru, which the Queenfish saw and the Barb heard. The Kashi fired a red rocket flare signaling submarine attack. A second explosion followed. Time 22:50. The Queenfish reported her attack completed, fresh out of torpedoes. Ed directed her to trail. Now it was the Barb's turn. Time 22:54. "Battle stations torpedoes!" I waited for the gongs to stop, then announced to the crew, "Men, we have a nice fat convoy of 5 big tankers and 6 or 7 escorts. Queenfish hit one that hasn't slowed, so they're alerted. We may have a bit of tangle, but oil for the lamps of Japan makes the Barb thumb her nose at anyone. On your toes, we're heading in." I told Bob to make ready all 6 tubes forward and the 2 after torpedoes, leaving only 1 torpedo forward for a reload, which we might need. If we do, make it quick. "Understood. And tell Jackson and Raglan to put 4 cases of beer in the cooler." Muffled cheers were heard from below. "Bob, if you can spare Brooks, send him up. With Tuck on the target-bearing transmitter, I need a quartermaster up here to help me keep track of this flock of escorts. I'll cross between the starboard ones to shoot the lead tankers." Time 23:23. The Barb bored in at full speed with the convoy heading north and zigging. We were almost sandwiched between 2 escorts. As we were working out the setup to shoot the after tanker in the starboard column and the big one just ahead of her in the center, Tuck yelped, "That big ship between the columns is an aircraft carrier!" "Ye gods, a flat top!" A submariner's dream. The chance of a lifetime appeared before us. One of His Imperial Majesty's carriers was protecting this important convoy. Tuck shouted, "We've got to get closer. It's hard to line her up in this poor light." "Tuck, the wind's backed around to the east. We're riding in like a whitecap. With a course change, we'll be spotted." Brooks tugged at my trouser leg. "Sir, the frigate has speeded up. She's got a bone in her teeth heading this way." There was only one thing to do. "All ahead, flank speed." The Barb surged forward, shook her tail, and flauntingly crossed ahead of the oncoming escorts. Seconds gelled. Miller, the port lookout, eased the stress. "Golly, if Mother could only see her little boy now. I promised her I wouldn't do anything rash." Time 23:31. "Bob, I've got a perfect overlap of the carrier ahead of the tanker's bow. Tuck will stay on the tanker's bow constantly. Spread the 6 fish across it. We won't have time for a second setup. This damned frigate is coming in to ram. He's on our port quarter. Give me a quick range to him, then the tanker and carrier, and we'll shoot. All ahead 1/3. Open the outer tube doors. Ranges, escort 700 yards, tanker 1800, carrier 2100. Time 23:32. Fire! The first torpedo whooshed out with a jolt and broach. "QB sonar, get on that torpedo. First looks erratic. Watch her for circling." Brooks grabbed me. "Look, the frigate's going to ram." A single glance was enough. "Take her down, Tuck." Then I jumped down the hatch. "Clear the bridge! Dive! Dive!" The lookouts plus Brooks and Tuck came dropping down. Tuck pulled the hatch shut while Brooks spun the locking wheel. The torpedoes were still being spurted out of the tubes as Doc pushed the firing plunger at 10-second intervals, so I couldn't change course. "Sonar reports first torpedo erratic to port. Did not circle. Rig shift for depth charge and silent running." As we went under, the frigate filled the whole glass on the periscope. Ed was handling its raising and lowering. Bob was orchestrating the torpedo firing, a perfectionist maestro. "Paul, level off at 365 feet. Down scope. Ed, house it all the way. He's sure to drop. No use looking at the targets. Torpedo runtime's not up. Should be about 2 minutes." As Bob shot the last torpedo, I shouted, "There goes Annie B. Go clobber her, Annie." "Sonar reports erratic torpedo steady on southerly course. The rest are all hot, straight, and normal." Then, "High-speed screws coming in pinging. Short scale on port quarter. Bearing is steady. Lock all watertight doors and lower conning tower hatch. Hang on." Time 23:34. "Boom!" Dick called out. "Hit in tanker!" Time 23:34.09. Wham! Hit in tanker! My God, she must have exploded! The Barb bounced around with the concussion. Our grins were cut short by the nerve-wracking sound of propellers passing directly overhead. "Stand by." Dead silence. On board the surfaced Queenfish, trailing the convoy, Elliot and his executive officer had their eyes glued on the convoy. Harry Higgs, after careful study, announced, "Captain, there's a carrier smack in the middle of the convoy." Boom! Barb's hit the trailing tanker. Boom! Wham! Good Lord, that second hit, she's exploded. Look at that giant fireball. Yeah, it's over 500 feet in diameter. Must be 1,000,000 gallons of gasoline going up. On the Kashi, Admiral Izo, having settled the convoy back on its prescribed track without a loss after the Queenfish attack, was startled by the explosion of the Azusa and signaled emergency turn starboard. On the Unio, the officer of the deck logged, recognized a column of water starboard side Azusa, judged to be torpedo damage. Azusa blew up on second torpedo attack. On a raft 125 miles to the southwest, Al Albury felt the great loneliness of the night and sea. Soon I will drink the seawater and know the terror of insanity, the specter of the choppy waters, the last living gasp, the drowning. Haunt me. On the bar, breathless seconds passed as we looked at each other. Sonar reports high-speed screws reversed course. What happened? He didn't drop. Time 23:35. Cheers from stem to stern. 3 hits in the carrier. Shankles, take your rudder off. Steady as you go. Gene, I think we were saved by the tanker exploding just as the skipper was ready to let go. We don't know what's happening on the surface, but from the jolt we got down here, it must have been enough to distract anyone. When things had calmed down, Ed added, By the way, Gene, what did you mean when you said, there goes Annie B, go clobber her Annie? Ed, it's the skipper's traditional privilege to name one torpedo. The men do it, too. Annie B is Anne Brindubke. She and her husband, Brindy, are old friends from Bonita days. She lives near us in Annapolis. After Brindy shoved off on his last patrol, I noted they changed his orders to refit at a forward base on his return. Knowing she's like a hen on hot bricks when he's on patrol, I dropped her a line. You know, big help me. I told her not to worry. With the slowness of mail, she might not hear from him for a long time. What a boo-boo. The Tullabee was sunk on that patrol, so I printed Annie B on that torpedo. When she slammed into the carrier, I said a silent prayer of sweet revenge. God bless. Sonar reports high-speed screws have swung around and are headed for us again, pinging short scale. Dave, what's the bathythermograph doing? Have we a temperature gradient? Isotherm 84 degrees from surface to 40 feet. Down here, 65 degrees. Good thermocline, 19 degrees. Great. That should deflect the accuracy of his attack. The sonar operator took his earphones off and bellowed, "He's dropping! Hang on! Here they come!" And come they did, his unwelcome calling cards too close for comfort. The indicator showed them deep and to starboard. The cloying cork dust was a nuisance, filling the air and sticking to the cold sweat on the men's bodies. Amongst all the hell, there was a cheering undertone. Breaking up noises, hissings, underwater explosions, whistling, crackling, crunching, sure signs that a ship was sinking. Caught in the cavernous maw of the depths, bulkheads collapse and boilers are crushed even before the ship accelerates and crashes against the ocean bottom. How great can personal and impersonal emotions become? Depth charges bursting all around, yet my mind was keenly alert as I directed evasive courses, speeds, feints, coaching the well-honed Barb team so the ship and her men and I would survive to rescue others. Yet a small part of my subconscious pondered the fate of the carrier that, head high, proudly steamed along just 4 minutes ago. Now she was writhing in her death agonies, her planes slithering over the side. The ugliness of destruction was tempered by the sobering knowledge that such planes could deal death no more. Random depth charges were felt far off, not close. Sonar reports destroyer turning and heading back at us. Dave, give me a course from plot to pass within 50 yards astern of the tanker's position when hit. Bob, I'm cutting as close as I dare to the stern of the tanker. There should be something burning up above. I hope she can't follow without getting singed. On the Unio, after the Azusa exploded, the hydrophone room detected a torpedo sound just abaft the starboard beam. The emergency alarm was pressed, indicating the sub's direction on the bridge battleboard. Captain Ikuzo Kimura ordered, "Left full rudder, battle stations!" The Unio had turned less than 10 degrees when the torpedo hit below the steering room on the starboard side. 2 seconds later, a second torpedo hit the main engine room. Captain Kimura was furiously doling out myriad orders over the damaged control circuit that was feeding information to the bridge, fighting to keep his Unio alive. Reports kept jamming in. Steering, main engines, auxiliary machines stop functioning and are unfunctional. All lights are out. Fires are extinguished in all boiler rooms and all main valves closed. 18 dead in engine room, 1 in steering. Just then, the third torpedo hit near the stern. The Unio heeled over 5 degrees to starboard, righted herself, and began to sink stern first, slowly. To prevent further attacks, Captain Kimura ordered, "Commence volley firing starboard cannons at the prearranged range. Point abaft the beam." On the Kashi, Admiral Aizo canceled any attempt to assist the Azusa, burning ferociously from bow to stern with a tremendous lake of fire around her. There could be no survivors from that holocaust. He radioed the stopped Unio on the voice circuit. No response. He then spoke in uncoded plain language to all ships on the voice circuit to continue with Z-Plan. Tailing escorts, frigates 21 and 27 to assist Unio. The Vice Admiral pick up survivors and pass this message. Land-based air cover is requested. Upon receiving this message, Frigate 21 passed it by blinker to the Unio and notified the Kashi of her depth charge attack, believed to have sunk the submarine as it disappeared off sonar near the Azusa. The Barb was deep now and running fast, cutting across the formation close astern of the tanker. A second set of noises, mixed with the rumble of the depth charges astern, tolled the death knell of the second ship as she began to break up. "Bob, secure from depth charge and silent running." Paul poked his head up through the lower conning tower hatch. He was soaked to the skin. "Had another cable pushed in down here, causing a fire hose at this depth. Tight now, but control room bilges are flooded. We're a bit heavy. I'll start pumping now. 1 air compressor foundation is cracked. We can weld it later." "Good work." Deep inside the Unio, a courageous damage control battle was being waged with a limited number of emergency battery lights. Her main emergency lighting system had been blown out. Bulkheads were being shored up. Working in waist-high water at times, sailors repaired leaks. Electricians, knee-deep in salt water, risked their lives connecting live substitute cables from a gasoline generator topside. Lighting was desperately needed. Depth bombs for the planes, stored in ready lockers on the hangar deck, had broken loose, rolling around, banging the elevators. 3 dropped into the sea, and 1 exploded. Smoke enveloped the entire deck leading to the main engine room, and carbon monoxide gas was being generated. All gas detectors were useless without electricity. Watertight doors were reinforced. Time 23:50. The Azusa sank with all hands. On the Unio, the auxiliary generator began working. 1 radio message was sent from the after transmitter room. Then gas forced the radio men to abandon the room and set up a portable telegraph set. Time 23:55. The Unio's sinking stopped. This was confirmed and spurred all hands to extra efforts. Sea level aft was at the hangar deck. Frigates 21 and 27 circled, depth charging. 17 September, time 00:05. The Unio's reinforced bulkheads collapsed. Sinking increased. Carbide in the damage control warehouse was underwater and began emitting gas. Brave volunteers carried it out and threw it into the sea. Crew members began pumping water out of the passageways in the sealed compartments. All secret documents were locked in the vault. In the Barb, Ed, Bob, and I conferred over the area chart. Bob, we've a torpedo forward and 2 aft. I'd like another crack at those last 4 tankers. How much time can you give me? Ed looked at me. Not satisfied yet? With 3 fish left? Captain, at 19 knots, we should have shoved off 10 minutes ago. With the vagaries of wind, sea, tides, and currents, plus this threatening typhoon, our search area is enormous. I couldn't deny the itch for action, but neither would I deny priority to our mission of mercy. Ed, we don't need orders. All our hearts bleed for the poor wretches, wherever they may be, imprisoned on their flotsam for this, their 6th day. Ed nodded approval. Time 00:40. At periscope depth, a quick swing around revealed only 1 escort in the light of the new moon, which was very faint. Random depth charging continued. Bring her up to 45 feet for radar. 2 pips were spotted at 11,000 yards, probably picking up survivors. With no burning oil, we surfaced and took off at flank speed. We were submerged only 1 unforgettable hour. Now hear this. Barb teamwork tonight was perfection. I feel sure we sank a 22,500-ton carrier of the Otaka class and a large tanker of the Itukushima class, 10,000 or more tons. I am proud of each and every one of you. You know how I feel. I know you're exhausted, but we must be ready at dawn, so now I ask you to turn to for half an hour and make the Barb shipshape for our guests. At 01:30, we'll splice the main brace, then hit the hay until dawn when the rescue lookout stations will be manned. Secreted away, Tomzik wrote, Made ready bow and stern tubes. Fired all 6 forward as we were diving with destroyers coming right down our throat. 5 hits, 3 on a flat top and 2 on a tanker that blew up. We heard them breaking up. Wahoo! Always wanted to hit a carrier. Went way deep and the ash cans commenced. They're still dropping and coming closer. Counted 58 so far. We've lost them. They've stopped dropping. Oops, I'm wrong. There's another, and another. Surfaced with all 4 generators on the line breezing out of here. 2 destroyers astern. Total ash cans for that lovely picnic? 63. Squared things away in the room. At 01:30 interrupted again, but this time it was fun. Our ration of beer and a shot of whiskey for good measure if wanted. Alone after lunch, I kidded Ragland. After your last patrol, your 3rd in Barb, did you know you had orders to go to new construction? I did? Yes, but your shipmates came to me and asked me to stop the transfer because you owed them so much money from your gambling debts. They did? Yes, they did. And I did. Now, Ragland, you need a winning streak, or the option of no more gambling, or else you'll never leave Barb. When are you going to pay them? After this patrol, Captain. Will your pay cover all your losses? Sir, if I tell you, will you promise not to tell them? Okay, shoot. Lego told me I would get orders to new construction. I had enough money to pay them, yet I wanted to make this last patrol with you. So I told them I was broke and leaving. They told me they'd fix that. They sure did. You hoodwinked us all. Honestly, what am I going to do with you? Captain, I heard that you can't have more than 4 patrols in command, so this is the last one for you, too. Ragland, you handcuff me with your loyalty. Suppose the Admiral lets me have a 5th. What do you do? Then I don't pay them all I owe. You've promised you won't tell. You're an absolute charlatan. Now I'm an accomplice. Why don't you strike for a legal rating? Paul Monroe came in just then and sat down.
"What's on your mind, my diving officer whiz?" "Just that, Captain. This is my 6th patrol and orders are in for my going to new construction. Tom King will take over my jobs. In all our combat, I've been in the control room diving or standing by to dive." "And doing an outstanding job. So?" "I'd like to see the action topside just once, then I could describe it to my wife." "Understood. For our next night surface attack, you'll be on the bridge with me as my TBT operator. I've seen you talking with Tuck Weaver when he had the job. You're a perfect watch officer, cool and collected, no problem there. If we're forced down, instead of staying in the conning tower, I'd like you to drop below and keep an eye on Tom. I've depended a lot on your handling Barb submerged when we're being bashed. I'll tell the officers that this is a one-shot change. Jack can stand by in the conning tower." "Thanks a million, sir." Time 1300. "Captain, William Fannin has sighted a convoy smoke coming out from the coast, broad on our starboard bow. I've gone ahead flank speed. We can't cut in, the water is too shallow." "Great, Bill. Station the tracking party. Coming up." A long look through the high periscope revealed at least 5 separate wisps of smoke. "Jim, I'll leave the high periscope to you for tracking. There are at least 5 big ships. Your range is now 15 miles, 30,000 yards. Until we have a mast sighted or radar contact, take your bearings on the lead smoke. They're on a southerly course. Send off a report, now estimating speed at 10 knots. Tell the loopers we'll send reports every 20 minutes and hold off attack until one makes contact. Have them home in on our radar. We're probably the only one with an accurate navigational position due to radar fixes on the coastal islands." On the bridge, visibility was excellent, the sea a bit rough with whitecaps, which would help. Looking through his binoculars on the bridge rail, Jack said, "I can make out at least 7 separate smoke sources now. What's your plan, sir?" "Barring aircraft interference, we'll close until we can clearly make out the masts and funnels of some ships. We'll end around at about 20,000 yards. They must be headed for Takao or Manila, evidently having run down the China coast. For Keelung, they'd be heading east, for Hong Kong, southwest. This allows the pack only the early evening for attack before we're in the minefields. Our job is to get ahead, cross over onto their starboard side, and make a submerged attack. This will drive them farther away from the China coast into the arms of the Queenfish and Pakuta." The convoy commander from the 1st Japanese Surface Escort Force got his convoy, Mo Ta 30, Moji to Takao, underway in single file on New Year's Day to pass through the slot in the heavily mined Tsushima Strait. This time he had frigates 26, 36, his flagship, 39 and 67, and 4 patrol craft with sonar and depth charges. Most of the ships of this important convoy were armed. The most important and largest, the Anyo Maru, 9,256 tons, was loaded with critical military supplies, kamikaze pilots, and troops for the re-invasion of Luzon. Built in 1913, she was a beautiful ship with a speed of 15.5 knots, length 463 feet, beam of 60 feet, and a 30-foot draft. He planned to protect her especially with his 4 smaller escorts. Next in the column was the Hisagawa Maru, a passenger freighter, 6,886 tons, loaded with troops, horses, and vehicles. Following her came the Shinyo Maru, 6,892 tons, on her maiden voyage. Completed 7 December 1944, she was loaded fully with troops and weapons and ammunition. Behind her was the tanker Manju Maru, 6,515 tons, and the freighter Rashin Maru, 5,454 tons, with 1,042 troops on board. In the lesser tonnage category followed the tanker Hikoshima Maru, 2,854 tons, and the freighter Miho Maru, 2,857 tons. En route, the tanker Sanyo Maru, 2,854 tons, would join them, coming from Dairen, near Port Arthur, with aviation gas. The 1,200-mile journey would end at Takao, January 9th. Clear of the straits, the convoy crossed to Korea and thence to the inside passage along the China coast, protected by a special heavy air cover for these vital cargoes destined eventually for the Philippines. The convoy anchored at night along the China coast. 8 January, time 0800. Mota 30 departed from its Fushu anchorage, where it had been well protected from the sea by the surrounding islands. This would be its last day and night underway down the Formosa Strait before it arrived in Takao. Clearing the harbor, the long column of ships steamed south. When the peaks of Haitan Island were 15 miles away, the Commodore signaled to his long column of ships, Execute formation DOG, base course 140 true, Zig plan B, 3 columns, starboard Marus, Shinyo, Sanyo, Hikashima, center Marus, Anyo, with 4 escorts, Rashin, Maiho, port Marus, Hisagawa, Manju. The afternoon dragged on for the Barb at flank speed. A warm, wallowing day with the seas astern and no aircraft was an answer to our prayers. Coming down the backstretch, the corks were forging ahead. What a deadly race! The flow of information going to the loopers could not be beat. As an older, thinner-skinned boat than her sturdier sisters, the Barb had one advantage. Her bridge structure above the hull, called the sail, had not been lowered. Being higher, it resembled a junk when seen from a distance. As the race went on for hours, it seemed incredible that we watched the masts and funnels of the 8 ships amassed without being attacked. Infrequent quick bearings from the high periscope, radar ranges, and my angles on the bow from the bridge provided neat solutions of course and speed. At 1500, good old Barb was out in front, starting a wide sweep around the final turn to position herself from port to starboard for the blistering pace down the home stretch. "Come on, Queerfish! Come on, Peculiar!" Laughing, Jack dropped his binoculars from his sky search. "Captain, you sound just like a jockey." "I am, and I want this filly of ours to show the Japanese how she can strut her stuff. She's unbeatable." "Sir, you'd better relax. Both submarines were way away." At 1600, the Barb was still ahead after rounding the final turn. Poised on the starboard bow of the convoy, her head was held high. She was determined to prevent the convoy from gaining the shelter of the shallows of the China coast again. Time 1612. "Bridge radio. Pakuta has contact. Man battle stations torpedoes. Jim, send out the message to the loopers. Barb diving to attack starboard flank 8-ship convoy. Speed 10 knots. Base course 140. 8 escorts. No air cover. Caution, we're in the U.S. blind bombing zone." After the convoy had cleared the shallow China coastal shelf, entering waters where a submarine could submerge, a depth charge was dropped about every half hour. I mused on the efficacy of this. Were they trying to frighten the foreign devils away? Did it enhance their courage or self-esteem? Author's note. Due to the laying of mines in the Formosa Strait, the area between latitudes 2230 north and 2500 north was a zone in which U.S. aircraft could bomb any target without first identifying it as enemy. Submariners therefore entered this zone at their own risk. Time 1618. "Bridge, Queenfish and Pakuta acknowledged our message. Let's go, Jack. Take her down." Now submerged at long last, we headed in at full speed. "Jim, it would be a snap to get into the center of this group and wreak havoc, but we have a more important job. They must be bent toward our packmates while we reload torpedoes. My plan is to smack the large 4-goalpost transport with the 4 escorts astern of the destroyer with 3 fish. Then we'll let fly 3 at the engine's aft freighter or tanker leading the starboard column. She's new. It appears she's fresh out of her building yard on her maiden voyage. That done, we'll turn and shoot 3 from the stern tubes at the second ship in the starboard column. Pass this to all rooms." "Aye, Captain. Dave says plot shows we'll be shooting in 40 minutes if the convoy doesn't change its zig plan. The loopers have only until midnight to work on this convoy. By then we'll be in the minefield. Maximum depth during combat will be only 130 feet. Twilight ends about 1900. Time 1710. Up scope. Bearing. Mark. Down. Range 3,200 yards. Angle on the bow 30 starboard. All ahead 1/3. Make ready all tubes. Coming in nicely. Put 4 cases of beer in the cooler. Jim, be a touch smarter in handling the periscope. I don't want it to be seen. 4.5-second exposure is what we've trained. Keep your finger on the button. When I say down, I mean down instantaneously, not fumbling for the button. Sorry, sir. Open the outer tube doors forward. Plot, any zigs for the next 5 minutes? Yes, sir, right now. Squatting on the deck to catch the periscope handles as they cleared the well, I ordered, Up scope. Down. They're zigging away. Plot, you're right on the button. Good work. This'll be the final setup and shoot. Set it in fast and accurately. Set torpedo depth 8 feet, divergent spread from aft forward, 50 yards between torpedoes. Everybody ready? Yes, sir. Time 1724. Up scope. Angle on the bow 70 starboard, range 2,500 yards. Bearing, mark, down. Set. Fire 1. Fire 2. Fire 3. Sonar, get on those torpedoes. Jim, we have a full overlap of the big freighter in the port column. The Barb shook with joy as the departing torpedoes jolted her and her shipmates. Time 1725. New setup. Up scope. Range 1,500 yards. Angle on the bow 60 starboard. Bearing. Mark. Down. Fire 4. Fire 5. Fire 6. Left full rudder. Sonar reports first torpedo salvo, all hot, straight, and normal. First torpedo, second salvo is running left of course, not circling. Last two are hot, straight, and normal. Dick yelled, "Hitting time!" Up scope. As explosions shook the ship, I reported, "Smack the transport just forward of the funnel. Second hit slightly abaft the transport bow." The third hit, a tremendous explosion, ducked my periscope. Being intent on the coming stern tube setup to which we were swinging, I idly remarked, "Now that's what I'd call a good solid hit." Overhearing someone mutter, "Golly, I'd hate to be around when he hears a loud explosion. What does it take to make him afraid?" I let go my grasp on the scope handles. That comment and the tinkle of glass from a shattered light bulb snapped me out of my fixation on the coming shot. The full force of the explosion dawned as I noted the shocked expressions on the faces of the fire control party. Men had grabbed the nearest support to keep from being thrown off their feet. The depth gauge now read 82 feet versus the 60-foot attack depth ordered. The Barb had been forced sideways and down. "Captain, forward torpedo room reports cases of canned goods burst open and are being cleared preparatory to reload. After engine room reports section of superstructure probably ripped off. Sonar reports high-speed screws all around. Rig ship for depth charge and silent running. Paul, use 2/3 speed and bring me up to 62 feet. I need a look. Get me a single ping sounding. We may need every foot of depth we can find. 160 feet and mud, sir." Time 1737. We heard many breaking up noises as bulkheads bent and collapsed and several thuds as ships or large parts of ships hit bottom. Sonar reports all screws going away. We exploded with cheers. Up scope. Stern of the transport is sticking up at a 3-0 angle with 2 escorts alongside taking off survivors. The bow is in the bottom mud. The brand-new engine's aft freighter exploded. There is nothing left but an enormous smoke cloud and flat flotsam. No lifeboats, nothing alive. Nothing. The large freighter leading the port column is on fire amidships just above the waterline. Her overlap must have caught the third torpedo that missed ahead of the transport. "Captain, can we get a setup for the stern tubes?" "Hold, Max. The whole formation is turned away and appears to have stopped. Right now the range is too great. All escorts appear to have scampered over to the unattacked side except the destroyer who's searching for us in the wrong spot." Time 1745. I could feel aggressiveness surging through my veins, sensing that the escorts were more scared than we were. "Okay, gang, let's go after them. Commence the reload forward. We'll set up on that second freighter in the starboard column as they settle down. Same plan, bend them to port exactly as we have so far. They must not get to the China coast." Time 1747. Up scope. The fire on the freighter is spreading, but she's underway. Uh-oh, the destroyer is speeding up and heading this way. Down scope, secure blowing down tubes. My aggressiveness evaporated as she shifted to short scale for the depth charge run. "Paul, take her down to 140 feet. Small down angle, you'll be 20 feet above the mud. All ahead flank, right full rudder. I'm giving him a high-speed turbulent knuckle to ping on. When we've come right 75 degrees, we'll stop and coast as long as you can hold it. Let me know when you need dead slow speed to hold your depth." "Sonar says he's coming right at us." "Captain, this would be a nice spot for a down-the-throat shot if we had any torpedoes loaded forward." "Right you are, Max. If, dog rabbit. All stop, rudder amidships. Steady as you go." We held our breath, hoping the ruse would work. The high-speed whine of the destroyer's screws, audible through the hull, passed to port and astern. Praise the Lord he did not drop. Paul was soon asking for speed. The situation was well in hand as the destroyer faded astern. Breaking up noises continued. With darkness imminent and the seas still rough, the Barb secured from battle stations. Our fish reloaded, we ate tuna sandwiches, then surfaced and raced back to the battle. Time 1914. Message, Queenfish attacking, sir. Great! The Pacuda would attack next, then the Barb. The others had ended a round and were ahead of the convoy, now reduced to 6 ships. They would sweep in to attack from the bows with a high relative movement. The Barb could not waste time ending a round. I had a new concept of attack that I wanted to test. Normally, Japanese convoys had a tendency to place their escorts ahead and broad on the bows with a trailer escort astern. For a dark, moonless night, Normal wolf-pack tactics called for the pack to get ahead of the convoy for an attack on the surface. One packmate would then pounce from port or starboard. Attack completed, the next would attack from the opposite side. That completed, the last of the three would attack from either side depending on the reaction of the convoy. After a sub attacked, she would make another end-around and the procedure would be repeated. All this took a lot of time, which we did not have. The concept I had been fiddling with on paper fitted the Barb's present situation perfectly. We were 20,000 yards, 10 miles, astern of the convoy, making 10 knots plus. At flank speed, an end-around would require 2.5 hours. The night was dark, with only the light from the stars, so all ships appeared as indistinguishable blobs, the escorts only smaller ones. To save precious time, which was dominated by the position of the minefields ahead, I intended to bring the Barb in on the starboard flank. Then we'd fall in astern of the starboard escort line, about 2,000 yards from the starboard column of ships, and attack the rear ship at will. Sinking or damaging ships in the rear of a convoy should not have greatly affected the organization of the convoy. To the contrary, hitting the van ships caused pandemonium. If our strike were successful, without counterattack from the escorts, the Barb would then move up the escort line to the next ship, repeating the maneuver until grave problems such as illumination arose. She didn't want to be canonized. With the loss of the most important ship, Onyo Maru, and the ammunition ship Shinyo Maru, the convoy turned northeastward toward the North Formosan ports, although the minefields, which would deter enemy submarines, were closer. The cliffs, however, did offer some protection. The convoy wheeled around again and reformed the remaining 6 ships into 2 columns. With escorts aplenty, the Commodore put 1 ahead, 3 on each side, and 1 trailer. Then he closed the mountainous Formosan coast to 10 miles, though in the dark it appeared much closer. All ships increased speed. Time 1934. Message from Queenfish. Attack from port completed. Fired 6 torpedoes at lead ships each column and 4 at second ship port column. Incredible misses. Convoy unalerted. Taking trailer station during reload. Hold 1. Pakuta reports attacking from starboard bow. I pressed the intercom. Barbarians, Queenfish missed on her attack. Pakuta now attacking. We're next, coming up on the starboard flank. Man battle stations torpedoes. Time 1956. Paul jumped with joy. Did you see that flash when the torpedo exploded on the lead ship? Look, Pakuta socked the second ship. Paul, keep your binoculars on those 2 ships. I have a pot full of escorts to watch, 8 within 5,000 yards. Bridge, Jim, I've been watching the Pakuta attack on the radar scope. She swung around and is very close to an escort which may be after her, heading out. We can move in. Understood. Make ready all tubes. Hitting the trail ship to starboard will take the pressure off Pakuta. Left full rudder, come left 45 degrees. Captain, the ship's hit aren't sinking or slowing. Too bad. Shift over to the target bearing transmitter. We're heading in. Bluth, Lego, as we leave the escort line, concentrate on the escorts astern. I don't want any escorts following us. I'll watch the ships and the trail escort. The convoy appears to be turning left, Jim, closing the coast. Most of the convoy made a 90-degree left turn to close the coast. The Racine and Manju were able to maintain speed. At 5 miles off the beach, the convoy resumed its course of 225 true. Frigate 67 assisted the Hisagawa, which was foundering without pumps. The damaged Racine Maru ran ahead of the convoy, leaving the Maiho as a trailer to port. The starboard column was still intact, led by the Manju, then the Sanyo Maru, and last the Hikoshima Maru. The 2 escorts were now to port of the Sanyo. Unseen, the Barb was in attack position at 2,150 yards. Open outer doors, tubes 1, 2, and 3. Paul, keep the hairline of your scope steady on the middle of the last ship. Jim, we have a nice overlap with the trail ship in the port column. The other ships on the port side seem to have disappeared. The escorts hang around us like a bunch of flies, as if we're one of them. The seas have calmed, sheltered by the coast. With electric fish and no phosphorescence, they won't know where they came from. Stand by. Final bearing. Mark. Time 2012. Fire 1. Fire 2. Fire 3. All ahead full. Right full rudder. Rejoin escorts. Set up on ship ahead. Time 2014. Bridge, all torpedoes normal. 15 seconds to hitting time. Paul yelled, hit amidships. Hit forward. She's nosediving. Gosh, what a sight. Time 2015. Captain, hit amidships in the port column. Ship overlapping. What a flash. There's smoke all around her. Paul just stared. I watched our next target as we moved forward up the escort line without opposition. Captain, Jim, the radar pip of the target has disappeared. She sank. The pip of the overlapping ship has diminished to half size. She must be sinking. Right, Jim. Pass the word well done to all hands. We saw the target sink. The other ship's spot is clouded with smoke. We can't see her. Check later to make sure she's sunk. I need your radar to shift to the starboard middle ship, our next target. The strategy of joining the convoy as an escort is working to perfection. The escorts are dropping depth charges sporadically. Soon as you have a setup on the next target, I'll take her in. Paul, snap out of it. The damaged destroyer Hamikaze, left by convoy HI-87 at her anchorage 10 miles away at Shinchiku, heard the explosions and got underway. Captain, we've got a good setup. The two ships that are left seem to have increased their speed to 12 knots and changed course to 190 true, closing the coast even more. Depth here is about 160 feet. Maher, give me a radar range for the three closest escorts. Escort dead ahead is 550 yards. Escort to starboard is 980 yards. Escort astern is 1,500 yards. The two biggest escorts are near the far side of the target. Others are scattered with apparent confusion, sir. Pressing the intercom, I announced, "Everything is okay, so on your toes, barbarians. We're heading in again. There are only two ships left. Open outer doors on tubes 4, 5, and 6. Set depth 8 feet. Shankles, come left 50 degrees. Lookouts, stay in the fore and aft escorts. Paul, put the hairline of your scope on the target's midship. Range? 1,500 yards. Set up checks. Final bearing? Mark." Time 20:33. Fire 4. Fire 5. Fire 6. QB sonar on the torpedoes. Right full rudder. All ahead full. Plot, Dave, have your assistant Higgins break out a chart and check our navigational position. These cliffs look like they're hanging right above us. I don't want to run aground. Sonar reports all torpedoes hot, straight, and normal. Time 20:34:30. 3 perfectly timed hits were followed by a stupendous eruption that far surpassed any Hollywood production. The rarefaction that followed the vice-like squeezing first pressure wave wrenched the air from my lungs. Somehow I formed the words, "All ahead flank!" The high vacuum in the boat made people in the control room feel like they were being sucked up the hatch. Personnel in the conning tower who didn't have their shirts tucked in at the belt had them pulled up over their heads. On the bridge, the target now resembled a fantastic, gigantic phosphorus bomb. The volcanic spectacle was awe-inspiring. Shrapnel flew all around us. "Lookouts, take cover!" Pieces sparkled over 4,000 yards ahead of us. We alternately ducked and gawked. The horizon was as bright as day. A quick binocular sweep showed only the one ship ahead remaining and a few scattered escorts turning away. None of the escorts near the exploding ship could be seen. Had they blown up? Forward torpedo room reports that some missiles are striking the hull. Aye, tell Stretch Laughter it's flying debris. At this point, I was ready to haul ashes and take a respite. Not so Paul, who in 5 patrols in his diving station had never seen a shot fired nor a ship sunk. He really had his guns out. Frantically, he pleaded that we couldn't let that last ship go. Besides, he loved to hear the wham, wham, wham of torpedoes and to see millions of bucks blowing sky high. It was a good sales talk. Jim, with the escort line evaporating, Barb has become the escort. Commence approach on the last ship. Put us on a course to pass her at no more than 2,000 yards. Then I'll cut in for a stern shot. Aye, sir. The destroyer Hamikaze had been underway for only 1 minute when she saw at 15,000 meters the incredible explosion and immense ball of fire as the shipload of aviation fuel changed night into brilliant day. With 14 knots her maximum speed and an unreliable hull, she stayed on her course for Macau Naval Base in the Pescadores, where she ran aground. Frigate 36 scraped her bottom in her haste to get away. The Manju Maru and a smattering of escorts raced on, everyone for herself, leaderless. The exploded target remains sank. The Barb had a bone in her teeth as she caught up to the last ship. Now on the port quarter, she was minutes away from a sachet in to 1,400 yards. Then, with a swirl and swish of her kilt, she'd turn away and let fly with 3 torpedoes. "Max, have you a setup? Paul's on her constantly." "Perfect, sir. Everything checks. No zigs." Time 20:55. "Bridge, urgent message from Queenfish. Hey, save one for me." "Aye. Check fire." "Shankles, resume previous course. Leave the outer tube doors open. Jim, we'll go on ahead to see if any ship got away." Send Elliot green light. Barb attacks completed. Good luck. A message came in from the Pacuda saying she would follow the Queenfish. We could attack as long as there were ships and torpedoes left. We had had our share, however. We passed the last ship abeam to port at 2,160 yards. What a temptation. Investigating a pip 10,000 yards ahead, we confirmed it to be 2 escorts hightailing it for Takao. Radar found no others. Time 21:25. The Queenfish requested enemy course and speed. She knew the Barb had been hitting. Evidently she was still some distance off. We replied, recommending she catch up to the last ship. Unbeknown to us, the Pacuda was well ahead and out on our starboard flank. Waiting for the finish of the Queenfish attack, she was also set up to attack this last ship. Bridge, radar shows 1 escort on the ship's starboard beam and another escort coming up fast on the same quarter. This last ship will be well protected. All ahead, 1/3. We can't wait any longer for Elliot or she'll get away. Set up and give me a range. Paul's steady on. 2,600 yards. That other escort is only 3,000 yards on her quarter. Better shoot. Max, when your generated range is 2,200 yards in about a minute. Paul's giving continuous final bearings. Time 21:53. 2 hits in her starboard quarter. Check fire! We had had only 20 seconds to go before firing. Shocked, we determined that the escort coming in must have been the Queenfish. The Pacuda had had a similar shock, for this was the ship she planned to attack next. With no merchant ships left in this area, she went to flank speed and headed for the slot in the minefield, hoping to find something. In the Queenfish, Elliot had noted the escort on the starboard beam of the ship and another broad on her bow. Not realizing this was the Barb, he considered firing 2 fish at her, but gave up the idea to concentrate on the close escort. A third potential tragedy had been narrowly averted. The target stopped. The Barb stopped. Would she sink? Time 21:57. Bedlam commenced. The target was settling, but she courageously opened fire in all directions with automatic weapons, 25mm, 37mm, and at least 1 gun, 3-inch or larger. The escort did likewise, firing toward the disengaged side. Jim, hang in there. I believe the Queenfish has been forced to dive with all the wild firing going on. So long as the pip is disappearing, we won't attack, but if she doesn't sink, we will. We'll remain stopped until she does. It was weird to be laying to there, listening to the rattle of the 25mm guns, the poomp, poomp, poomp of the 37mm ones, and the blasts from 3- and 4-inch guns. The guns' smoke, pungently foul odor hung heavy throughout the ship. We were protected by that smoke from their guns. Captain, there's no change in target, Pip. That does it. Queenfish can't attack submerged. All back 2/3. Jim will back into 1,500 yards to make sure a 2-torpedo coup de grace will sink her. Shoot tubes 9 and 10. Time 22:02. Target Pip disappearing again. All stop. Check fire. We'll stay here until it's definite. Shore batteries now joined the fray from at least 6 points along the coast. Fire from their ships, all tracer, was high and erratic. Projectiles flew thick and fast. The shore batteries' fire was novel. Their shells burst as they struck the water a few thousand yards west of us. It seemed that the Japanese believed they were being bombed instead of torpedoed. On the after part of the bridge deck, Paul was manning the after TBT for a stern tube shot. As his first baptism under fire, it was unnerving. Captain, they're shooting at us. We've got to get out of here. Paul, which way are they shooting? They're shooting from left to right. No, right to left. Some are passing over us. Let's go. I thought I'd have some fun with him. Paul, it's so dark I can't see which way you're standing. Are they shooting from port to starboard or starboard to port? I don't want to turn Barb smack into the line of fire. Dead silence. I could see Paul's shadow approaching me. He kept coming until his face was about 6 inches from mine. Captain, this is one hell of a time to be specific. We both laughed. Okay, Paul, that ship has her lower decks awash. She's not going anyplace and certainly isn't worth the expenditure of more torpedoes. Bridge, Pip has almost disappeared. Our lifeguard station for tomorrow's carrier bombing raid on Formosa is close to our submerged attack position this afternoon. Time 22:19. Right. Set us on a course for our lifeguard station. Secure stern tubes. Ahead full. Reload torpedoes and put 4 more cases of beer in the cooler. We'll splice the main brace tonight at 22:45. Tomorrow we'll main brace again with the cake at 1100. Scratch 1 convoy. Secure from battle stations. Time 22:45.
Splicing the main brace, everyone cheered. It was a day to remember forever. In the wardroom, the usually quiet but always affable Paul related the best day of his life. Holding the Barb above the mud in the afternoon action, he surfaced into the fever-pitch battle of the evening, scoring 10 hits with 12 torpedoes. We celebrated the great teamwork all around. Joining the general rejoicing throughout the boat, Bluth and Lego had shipmates spellbound with their tales of two lookouts. I wished everyone could have seen the action. Time 23:56. The Pacuda reported that her attack was completed. She had gone down to the edge of the minefield slot and had found one ship. She attacked and missed with a 4-fish salvo. No other ships got away. The Pacuda confirmed the pips of both ships disappeared after our first night attack, definitely sunk. Unbeknown to the Pacuda, the last ship she attacked foundered and beached in a few hours. This Rashin Maru, damaged by the Pacuda's first attack, had left the convoy earlier. Thus, all the merchant ships were either sunk or beached. The Hamikaze and Frigate 36 extricated themselves. Rashin Maru was salvaged. Lying in my bunk, I critiqued myself about the attacks and what we needed to sharpen. My main concern was the muttering I had overheard. What does it take to make him afraid? Why wasn't I afraid? A skipper should know his ship and her capabilities better than anyone else's. He's at the periscope, he's on the bridge, he sees the enemy, and he has studied him. Years of study, training, and being saturated with a sense of duty to country have molded him into readiness for command and eager acceptance of responsibility. Fear is a natural characteristic of all living creatures, necessary for self-preservation. To win, however, fear must be controlled, enabling expertise to determine when to fight and when to run away, to be able to fight another day. As experience teaches, the subconscious almost automatically weighs the odds. Could it be that my brain was limited to a bucket of fear? If so, my bucket of fear was filled with concern for my wife and youngster so far away. Out on patrol, submerged or on the surface, I was faced with an enemy that I could grapple with intelligently. Having my bucket of fear fully allotted elsewhere gave me an edge, an urge to get the war finished as quickly as possible. All of the officers hovered over the wardroom table as Jim spread out the chart to stake out our search. The bulkhead clock struck 4 bells, 2200, reminding us to get going. Jim, how much time have we got? Twilight is at 0550. Let me have those dividers. Setting them for 10 miles, I stepped off from our position around Pai Sang, turning back to the coast and along up to 7 stars. 80 miles plus 25 more to escape to good diving water after the attack is too tight. If I were Japanese, I wouldn't mind Pai Sang out to the 20-fathom curve where the junk fleets fish. Cut that in half and it will save us about 20 miles. Max piped up. The whole coast looks good, particularly both sides of Fuyan Island. Everyone nodded. Agreed? We go in. Wipe those rueful smiles off your faces. I know no sub has ever done this before. That's our great advantage. Surprise! We must paralyze the enemy until we've finished all of our Sunday punch, our last 4 torpedoes forward and 4 aft. We must get away before he counts his strength and realizes he can wipe us out. Believe me, he won't know what hit him. When he finds out, we'll be gone. Any questions? How do we spot anchored ships near the beach? Dave, take that piece of plexiglass you have that fits the PPI scope. On it, trace the coastal contours, rocks, and islands shown. Compare that with the largest scale chart of the coast we have. We'll investigate any closer blurb that doesn't match. Taking Jim to my cabin, I informed him, for his ears only, that I was sending an eyes-only personal message to Captain Shepard and the Pacuda, inviting them to join us. Together we could smash the 6+ ships. Jim agreed. I wrote to Shepard, I am positive the convoy has anchored. Pacuda is now about 20 miles from us. Barb will search the coast and can wait 1 hour if you care to join us. I warned Chief Radioman Henson not to reveal the message or Shepard's reply to anyone. In 5 minutes, Henson gave me Captain Shepard's response. Drop dead. Time 23:26. North of Pai Sang, we moved in at full speed on 3 engines. The 4th was on charge, topping off the battery. Visibility was lowering. I took this opportunity to talk to the men, for no one was asleep. Shipmates, we've got this convoy bottled up along the coast. We're going to find them and knock the socks off of them. When we attack, we'll strike and strike hard with 8 torpedoes. We'll overwhelm him, topple him, keep him off balance until we've skidded out of the harbor. This surprise will be Barb's greatest night, a night to remember. If you have any questions, I'm coming through the boat now." Starting in the forward torpedo room, I asked James White where his torpedoes were. "Tubes 3, 4, 5, and 6, sir." "Let's move 5 and 6 up into 1 and 2. When we shoot, I doubt the water depth will be over 30 feet. I don't want any mud rakers. Set their running depth at 6 feet. Passing by the officer's small galley, I asked Ragland, who was busy brewing more coffee for the long night, "How's it going?" "Captain, if you think you hear the dishes rattling, that's not the dishes. That's my teeth." "Calm down, Ragland. We're going to be all right. Don't forget, you could have gotten off if you had paid your gambling debts. Are you sure you want to go in with me on our next patrol?" "I'll tell you tomorrow." All the way through the boat, no questions were asked, no conversations started. Men merely signaled with their fingers in a V, thumbs to forefingers in an O, or thumbs up. The control room was like a morgue. The normal joshing had vanished. Back on the bridge, soundings came up monotonously every 5 minutes. 90 feet. 70. 50. 40. Jim came up, indicating he wanted to talk privately. We moved to the back of the bridge. "Have you had a reply from Pacuda?" I waved my index finger back and forth, indicating nothing doing. "Captain, don't you think you should put the men in life jackets?" "No, Jim, I don't want to frighten them. I need them on their toes and thinking. Look, this is your first patrol in Barb. I've never seen the men so quiet before. The control room was so silent, if I had dropped a pin, it would have sounded like a depth charge. I know the gung-ho capabilities of each of these men. They have faith in me. I have faith in them. I'm not going to let them down. No, Jim, no life jackets. It's too alarming. The odds are with us. Believe me." 23 January. We continued our relentless search up the coast among our entourage of several hundred darkened junks. With constant helming, Jack maneuvered the Barb frequently to avoid collisions. The silence was broken only by the mechanical giving of necessary orders. The night dragged on. No one cared to sleep in the ambience of imminent combat. Time 01:12. "Captain Dave, this chart plot matching is showing an uncharted smear northwest of Incog Light. Checked this on the radar A-scope and got saturation pips at 29,800 yards. Both the radar operator and I say they are definite ships. The only doubt is our radar has never before had saturation pips on ships at such a range." "Well done, Dave. Continue the search. Watch for patrols. They can't all be asleep." "Captain, blinking light ahead." "No, it's gone out." "Probably a junk, Lego. Dave, check Incog Island. See if you find anything moving." "Yes, sir. Something there at 14,000 yards, moving counterclockwise around Incog." "Log her posit and the time. I'll circle right here until the situation clears." Time 02:40. "Bridge, must be an escort. We're picking up Japanese radar sweeping from her and a couple of other bearings. Took her 21 minutes to disappear on the other side of Incog. The captain apparently is more concerned with using his radar to keep himself off the rocks." "Probably. The moon is set. Visibility is poor. I'll have to revise our fire control party, assuming the convoy is on the other side of Incog." Heading up the coast again toward Incog, we cleared the junks. None ahead. I preferred to have them or to know the reason for their absence. We knew of recent mining activity in this vicinity. Mines could have been laid from Incog to Tay Island. Still, a more effective field would be from Incog to Ping Fong, closing the eastern harbor entrance. The anchored ships were too close to that point, so no minefields then existed. "Bridge picked up another escort patrolling off Ping Fong and a third due east of the ships. Whoops, here comes our circler again at 7,000 yards. Jim, I can barely make her out. Looks like a frigate. She's going to be a damn nuisance being so close when we turn into the harbor unless—" "Captain, you're cutting out. Unless what?" "Unless we give her the revolving door treatment. Let me know just before she disappears. We'll go ahead emergency and skin around Incog when she's on the other side of the island. Shoot and shove off." Time 0300. "She's disappearing. All ahead emergency." The Barb galloped forward, intent on outfoxing the foxes. The harbor opened as we rounded Incog. Timothy, Maher, Lehman, and Dave, watching the radar, whistled. "My God, Captain, the harbor is chuck full of ships at 10 miles. Get me a count and their formation. Jim, fortunately we have a flexible fire control party for night surface attack, and now we're going to flex it. I'll take your place in the conning tower. You take navigational plot below. Secure target plot and send Dave to radar since there's no zig plan to these. Send Tom to the bridge to assist Jack. I'll keep the con. Understood. Time 0320. Radar counts about 30 ships total, including the 3 escorts. The ships are anchored in 3 lines parallel to the coast with a few smaller ones closer in. On one radar bearing, we counted 12 ships. The lines are about 500 yards apart. Fantastic. All ahead standard. Jack and Tom took over surveillance from the bridge. I went below and switched on the intercom. Men, we've successfully entered Namquan Harbor undetected. We've got the biggest target of the war in front of us. Our approach is starting. Make ready all tubes. I figure the odds are 10 to 1 in our favor. Man battle stations torpedoes. The gongs resounded to cheers. Action at long last. Max had an idea. Captain, the tide is ebbing. I'd like to use a speed for the anchored ships of 1 1/4 knots to take care of the drift of the torpedoes. Logical. Do so. And with the seas, wind, and tide, the ships should be heading 050 to use for a course. Also smart. Jim brought up his chart for perusal. I marked the navigational position for firing, a mite less than 3,000 yards from the inboard ship line. This was 6 miles inside the 10-fathom curve, plus 19 more miles to the 20-fathom curve, our home in the deep. Fire control, listen. We'll attack with bow tubes from the southeast on a 90 track, swing right for stern tubes on a 60 track, praise the Lord, then gallop. Jim, the stern tube shot will be on our escape course. We'll have about an hour and a half run at flank speed to get clear. I'm electing to retire through the area marked unexplored on this large-scale chart. It contains sufficient rocks awash and rocks position doubtful to make any over-ambitious escort think twice before risking a chase. Also, it crosses the masses of junks, which should be a definite and final barrier to pursuit. That course will stop ships. I hope you're not including Barb. Me too. What countermeasures do you expect? Possibly searchlights, hot pursuit, gunfire. No depth charges for sure. Stealth, stupefying surprise, and a sprinkle of serendipity are Barb's hallmark. What's that last? It's the faculty of making fortunate and unexpected discoveries by accident. Luck is where you find it, but to find it, you've got to look for it. Time 0352. Took a quick run to the bridge to check the phosphorescence. Through binoculars, it was easy to see the lines of ships quietly at anchor. The center escort was off our starboard quarter about 3,000 yards. Tom, watch him. Through the telescope on the TBT, the individual ships in the first line were quite clear. The second and third line ships formed a complete overlap from end to end. No one had ever had such a perfect target. Jack, get on the TBT scope. Now look at that big ship just left of center. Got her. That's our first target. I'm putting the scope on our second target, the largest ship to right of center. Take a look. Check. When we shift to stern tubes, you put that ship in your crosshairs on the after TBT. Now get on that first target and stay on it until we shoot. Conning tower, use TBT bearings and radar ranges. Jack, steady on. How's it look? Checks. I'm going below. Dave exclaimed, "What a beautiful target. It measures 4,200 yards of continuous overlap. We can't miss even with an erratic torpedo. Range is coming on, sir." Time 0402.40. All ahead 2/3. Open the outer doors. Dick, insert 150% divergent spread. Final bearing. Mark. Fire 1. Fire 2. Fire 3. Fire 4. Dave, Max, shift target to the right for the stern tubes. Dick, our problem is to keep too many torpedoes from hitting the same ship. Make your next insert a 300% spread. Time 0405. Stern tube gyros are approaching 0. Final bearing. Mark. Fire 7. Fire 8. Fire 9. Fire 10. All ahead flank. Sonar on the torpedoes. Sounding? I dashed to the bridge. All binoculars were trained on the ships. Tom? Don't worry, Captain. That frigate hasn't seen us. All torpedoes hot, straight, and normal. Perfect. Breathless seconds dragged, awaiting the rape of solitude. Time 0406. 2 hits, main target. She's settling to the bottom. Hit in the second line behind the main target. Time 0407. Hit large freighter, third line. She's on fire. She's flaring up in flashes. The fires are being snuffed out. She must be sinking. Sounding 29 feet. Time 0408. Hitting time after tubes. Hit first line. What a geyser. Another hit in the first line. A large freighter. Good Lord, she's belching out a huge cloud of smoke.
Time 0408.36. Hit second line. My God, the whole side of the ship blew out toward us. She sank. Time 0409.40. Take cover! Far ship and third line hit and exploded. Munitions! Projectiles 6 to 12 inches are flying all over. Searchlights are sweeping. Let's get out of here. She's sunk. Bridge, they've turned on air search radar. Probably think they're being bombed. Hold it! That close escort is heading this way and speeding up. Range 6,000 yards. The one off Ping Fong has her surface radar steady on. Range 10,500 yards. Looks like we're in for a race. The one at Incog must be behind the islands. Keep on them until we get to the unexplored area, then I'll need the radar to stay off the rocks. Let me know if they're closing. The whole harbor, which had lit up, was now full of smoke. I couldn't see anything astern. Jack and Tom were jumping for joy. We could hear the cheers below. Smiling, Jack said, "Captain, if you bring Barb safely out of this one, the Medal of Honor is a cinch." That bothered me a little. Napoleon once claimed he could win a war on a trunk full of medals, but that's not submarining. The Barb's goal was maximum damage to the enemy. That meant sharing our contacts with any sub close enough to get in. Submarine crews chasing medals wouldn't do that. It was no good. A wolf pack would fall apart operating that way. That was why I wanted to stay with the loopers. Jack, please forget medals. Bridge, closest escort is gaining. Range 4,200 yards. Engine room, tell Chief Williams to crank up every revolution he can squeeze out. We must have more speed. After torpedo room, reload your last 4 torpedoes. We may need them. Jim, stand easy on battle stations. Have the 40mm and twin 20mm gun crews standing by in the control room. How's the navigation coming along? Right on track. Time 0420. Dave, escort range? 3,600 yards, closing. Get Williams on the phone. Chief, I need more speed. Sir, the engines are at their top speed now. Any more and the governors will cut the engines out. Well, tie down the governors and put 150% overload on all engines. Time 0430. Dave, escort range? 3,200 yards. Still closing, but not as fast. We're making 23.5 knots. A new world record for submarines. Captain, engine room. The bearings are getting hot. Let them melt. Jim, how close will we pass the rocks? The rocks awash and the straw stack rocks. 3,000 yards, tubes 7 and 8 are reloaded. That's a record. Cut into 1,500 yards from the rocks. Jim, I can see she's a frigate. I doubt she'll start shooting until she's close to 2,000 yards. Then she'll have only her bow gun. She must illuminate like they did to us in the South China Sea. The minute she does, we'll shoot 2 torpedoes aft and turn in toward the rocks, hoping she'll take a shortcut or give us a broadside and pile up. Time 0436. Junks ahead, 900 yards. Oh my God, we can't stop now. Get me a last range on the escort, then shift the radar to sweep back and forth 30 degrees on either bow. I'll try to avoid the junks. God help them. Range 2,700 yards. The Barb highballed toward the 20-fathom curve, maneuvering wildly. Within minutes, the escort stopped chasing and opened fire on the junks. Their inferior radar evidently couldn't distinguish between a junk and a submarine. No searchlights were turned on to attract a possible torpedo. At 0438, as the frigates commenced firing, the Tay Island lighthouse keeper illuminated. A fleeting thought. I must write a letter thanking him for his courteous navigational assistance in these crucial moments. Time 0446. We untied the governors on the main engines, slowed to flank speed to cool down the bearings, and secured from battle stations. We sent a message to the Pacuda on the results of our coastal foray. Separately, I sent another eyes only to the skipper. I offered to make a joint foray along the coast that coming evening or the next day, though we had only 4 fish. His response again? Drop dead. Time 0511. The galloping ghost of the China coast crossed the 20-fathom curve with a sigh. I had never before appreciated how much water this is, but this would be the first place they'd search for us, so I decided to stay on the surface after dawn, half an hour away. The cannonade astern continued. Poor junks. Absorbing punishment meant for the Barb. Time 0633. Radar has a plane coming in fast, 7 miles. I exercised a skipper's privilege to change his mind. We dived. Sounding? As radar went under, the last range was 2.5 miles. Depth of water is 40 fathoms, sir. I sat on the edge of the diving plainsman's bench and opened the ship's log. I wrote, January 23rd, 1945, 0635. Life begins at 40 fathoms. I yawned as a great letdown set in. I told Swish to take her down to 150 feet to cool the Barb off and let everyone get some sleep. Captain, Swish said. "You need some shut-eye, too. Do you realize you've been on the bridge for over 24 hours? You didn't even come down for a wee. Swish, I can assure you I didn't do it in my britches. Tell me, how was it down here while we were in the harbor? Captain, the few who were discombobulated calmed down when I said, 'No strain. If anything happens, we can get out and walk.' It was that shallow, even less than 30 feet at times as I watched the fathometer. We got away from Nam Quan like a 2-year-old at Santa Anita in spite of one command you failed to give, sir." "What was that?" "Put 4 cases of beer in the cooler. After we fired the stern tubes and with all the explosions, I knew you were too occupied and had forgotten. So I got a few of the shaky ones to put 4 cases of beer in the cooler to cool themselves off. Swish, you're not a chief. You're a prince. Thanks." I went to the intercom. "Now hear this. Well done to each and every one. 8 hits. No errors. Be proud of a night none of us will ever forget. Barb did it and will live it forever. Your doughty Chief Saunders came through in the crunch and put 4 cases of beer in the cooler. We'll celebrate at 1600, so turn in all along and recharge your own batteries." After diving, we heard distant thunder below astern. Explosions, gunfire, bombs, depth charges, all indiscernible, but angry. The Barb slept. But the rest of the world didn't. As debris from the exploding ships splattered the nearby coast, reports started flying thick and fast. Local residents ran out of their paper-windowed houses to watch the conflagration and battle. Soon overcome by the acrid fumes of the spreading smoke cloud that enveloped the harbor, they ran back in and buttoned up their abodes. 10 miles north of Nam Quan Harbor at Pengyang, a pocket of resistance still held by the Chinese army, the troops manned their bulwarks anticipating an attack. Even there, the sounds of the battle to the north were disruptive. One of the merchant ship captains of Mota 32 bolted out of his bed in the room above the harbor tavern at the first explosion. He knew the sound well. As more followed, he knew they were not bombs. How was it possible for a submarine to penetrate this port? What had been overlooked? He threw on clothes, raced downstairs barefooted, slid the front door open, and went outside as the ship exploded. In the fireball light, he recognized her. The Taikyo Maru, an ammunition ship with the Moji Takao 32 convoy heading for the Philippines. In the light, he also saw his own ship afire, flaring up and settling as the water extinguished the blaze. He heard a voice say, "I pray not many men are killed." Whirling around, the captain saw it came from the tavern owner, Chang Su. With typical Japanese courtesy, the captain thanked Tsu, not knowing the chief of the spy ring's concern was only for his pirates. Tsu wondered how this would affect his spy network. Author's note. Postscript. In May 1991, I interviewed a retired Chinese merchant ship captain as to the feasibility of this interchange. He said the Japanese trained many of their captains to speak Mandarin Chinese fluently and used them as spies when their ships visited Chinese ports. Ashore there, they were indistinguishable from the Chinese. The world never knew how deeply Japanese spies had penetrated China before their invasion. Radio Tokyo announced to the world on the evening of 22 January that the U.S. Third Fleet was bottled up in the South China Sea. That evening, Admiral Bull Halsey slipped through Luzon Strait under an overcast and re-entered the Pacific. Coincidentally, the Barb told the Pakuta at that same time that she had a convoy bottled up on the Chinese coast, Nam Quan. The Barb struck first, just before dawn, against some 30 vessels, 11 escorts and 16 ships, according to Japanese records, and laid claim to 3 ships sunk, 1 probably sunk, and 3 damaged. She escaped unharmed from what some called her kamikaze attack. In a post-dawn strike on Formosa, Halsey's Third Fleet laid claim to 5 tankers and 5 freighters sunk. This time, Japanese aircraft succeeded in striking back. A bomb hit the carrier Langley, and suicide planes crashed into the heavy carrier Ticonderoga and the destroyer Maddox. These kamikaze victims had to retire to Ulithi under escort. Time 11:30. In the Barb, the last distant thunder below was logged. All gunfiring, depth charging, and bombing ceased, and the ensuing silence awakened me. I dashed this message off to China. From Barb. Action, ComNav Group China and China Air.
Your latest info resulted in 8 hits in Pot of Gold. X found your convoy plus others and possible large warships anchored at Namquan Harbor. Last night, X, 3 ships known sunk. X, terrific explosion. X, can you give us types and extent of other damage? X, many thanks from Barb. X, coast not suitable for sub-operation. X, suggest aircraft mines. X. In Chongqing, Admiral Miles relayed this message for action to Com Subpack Admiral Lockwood and for info to Admirals Nimitz, Halsey, and Ernest King in Washington. Miles then sent the Barb. Wonderful job getting sinkings in that spot. X. Agree with you on mining. X. There are no planes available, nor have they ever flown over that area. X. Attempting to get damage for you by every means available. X. Months later, Miles informed me privately that 6 spies had gone aboard the largest ships posing as fishermen selling their catch. One had even climbed up the anchor chain. By bribing the watch with free fish, they were permitted to sleep on deck overnight. In the morning, they left before the convoy got underway, having obtained information on troops, cargo, and equipment. Miles further stated that the Barb had damn near ruined the spy system. 3 of the 6 pirates on different ships had been killed by our torpedoes. Of the 3 returning, 1 wanted a camera to take pictures, 1 quit, and 1 said nix to spying at Namquan. The U.S. Naval Group China operated under an agreement made with Chinese General Tai Li, Chief of Underground Activities. This established the Sino-American Cooperative Organization, SACO, headed by Tai Li and Admiral Miles. Within a day, reports on the attack tumbled in from Tai Li's agent and from Chang Yi Chao, supervisor of the pirates who cooperated with and assisted Admiral Miles. The Barb's dispatch via Miles to Tai Li came in first. A second message from the pirates was sent to a U.S. Coast Watcher who radioed Nav Group that the Barb had sunk 3 destroyers, damaged 1, and sunk 4 other ships. Third, U.S. Navy Lieutenant Carl Divelbliss, who had charge of the Coast Watchers of Section 2, Intelligence Net 4, reported in from Changchao. We had the extreme pleasure of being advised that out of the northbound convoy reported by Pinghai on the 20th, a submarine on the 23rd definitely sank 3 of the destroyers and damaged 4 other ships of the convoy. Fourth, a report came via Chang Yi Chao that all 11 ships of the Japan-bound convoy had been sunk by the sub. I was also credited, falsely, with sending a message to the Coast Watcher, next time I'll put wheels on my keel. Still another report came from U.S. Naval Unit 8 covering the Wenzhou environs. On 23 January, Allied planes and 30 or 40 warships were reported in engagement with a Japanese fleet south of the Yunnan Peninsula at Namquan. Radioman Robert Sinks of Fredericksburg, Texas, part of the SACO team of Coast Watchers in China, was stationed at Changchao in charge of relaying messages he received from them and their pirates to headquarters at Chongqing. He reported a message from Marine Sergeant William T. Stewart, their best and most daring Coast Watcher, who was based at Pinghai Island. Sergeant Stewart, who worked alone and frequently cruised along the coast using the friendly junks of the pirates working for him, reported that the submarine attack sank 4 ships and damaged 3. The following day, Sinks received a message from the pirates stating that a large number of bodies of dead soldiers were washed ashore. Then General Tai Li sent a message to the pirates to check the pockets of the clothing of all dead soldiers for possible intelligence information. Afterwards, headquarters considered that Stewart was taking too many risks, so they had him relieved, commended him, and sent him back to the States, where he received the Legion of Merit for that tour of duty. Time 1600. Having surfaced after lunch, the Barb continued her retirement to the east with the seas rising. Promptly at 8 bells, swish past the word, "Splice the main brace! All hands on deck! Below deck! You can't show a leg, so shake a leg!" Chief Williams was awarded the honor of cutting through the convoy of ships embellishing the cake. His engines had established the new world speed record for a surfaced sub of 23.5 knots and an average of 21.6 knots for the escape. With a flourish, he presented me with the first piece. The interior was marbleized. I glanced at Phillips. "How come, baker man?" "Captain, there were so many recipes and so many helpers, I would have had to make cupcakes. My solution was to use them all." Time 22:01. We surfaced in bright moonlight and a cloudless sky which prohibited any operation that night, so we headed across the bay to look for a lone sampan that we might capture to assist in the landing. No joy. 20 July. After breakfast, all the officers studied the charts we had recovered. Their hydrographic accuracy and contour lines on land showed elevations and configurations that our charts lacked. By noon, we had the optimum landing spot. Time 15:17. The Barb dived to reconnoiter our choice. Coasting with 2 fathoms beneath the keel, we sighted trains on schedule. The beach was sandy. No houses were within 700 yards. We were a mile offshore at 60 feet depth in 12 fathoms. The Japanese chart matched perfectly. Studying the local trains, we recorded that the number of cars varied from 7 to 32. The average train consisted of 12 freight cars, 3 passenger cars, and 1 mail or baggage car. Bill, more good news. I have the scope spot on your landing site. Beyond the beach, a grassy meadow stretches for about 200 yards up to the military highway. No animals. The land from the highway to the railroad about 100 yards farther in appears to be small scrub. Take a look. Beautiful. Can you see those twin peaks on the background mountains? He nodded. Those 2 peaks will be your guide while paddling in. I'll bring Barb into less than 1,000 yards from the beach by radar before you disembark. Use your magnetic compass, course 274. I doubt if tonight's the night. We need an overcast to veil that moon. Time 21:32. Surfaced in a calm sea. The bright moon fouled up any landing ideas. A night fit for lovers. 21 July. Patience Bay is well named. It tried mine. While awaiting cloud cover, we did something useful, however. We took soundings of uncharted areas for the hydrographers. During the day, I held a conference of all the officers and the saboteur squad. Barb will approach the beach flooded down, ready to launch the rubber boats. She will come in on the batteries as silently as possible. The approach will be at slack water, time to arrive at the debarkation point by radar at 23:10. The whole coast observes blackout afloat and ashore. By that hour, the inhabitants should be asleep. We'll be less than 1,000 yards offshore, so speak in whispers. That includes tag heaving the lead for soundings. Questions? We'll lose sight of the black boats paddling in, commented Dave. Why don't we keep track of them and where they land by making up a tin radar corner for each boat? Great idea. Do it. I went on. Upon beaching, Sever and Newland will guard the boats. The other 6 proceed up the meadow and cross the highway to the track. At a suitable position for planting the charge, the party will divide. Markison will go 50 yards south on the track near the road as a guard. Klingelsmith goes 50 yards north near the road, and Richard 20 yards inland if he's not needed to dig. Walker, Swish, and Hatfield dig under the tracks and plant the battery can in charge. Then adjust the microswitch clearance and recall the guards. All get well clear, flat on the ground, head turned away with eyes closed while Hatfield makes the final hookup of the firing circuit to the charge. Understood? Max piped up. Shouldn't we build in a test circuit in case a wire has come loose in the waterproof battery can? Hatfield concurred. Good idea. Do so. Communications are simple. Those of you who have been Boy Scouts will remember the 2 bird calls to be used. First, when you approach a group, always whistle Bob White. This is the alert signal and will save you from being strangled by your shipmates. I had each man practice the call, and everyone passed save one. Sever, you sound like a sick quail. If you can't whistle this, I'll have to substitute a quartermaster for you. With that threat, he became a blue jay and could mimic any bird. Your other whistle signal is for assembling. Use the whippoorwills. Ti-la-ti. Try it. All passed. Willie shook his head. Captain, these are American birds which may not exist in Japan. True, but I'm banking on my belief that the Japanese won't know any more about their bird calls than the Americans do. Now let's move on to other signals. A blast on the mechanical whistle signals for an emergency dash to the boats. 2 very stars indicate we are in trouble, lay a barrage in the direction indicated. 1 very star from Barb signals we are in trouble, will return every night. W on the blinker gun means the landing party is returning to Barb. Last, 1 very star at 15-minute intervals informs us that you are unable to locate Barb after 30 minutes paddling from the beach. You must stay together. Plan on the party debarking at 23:20 and landing on the beach at 23:35. Return no later than 02:30 for twilight commences at 02:45. No further questions? Okay. Another lover's night. Only 1 sampan was sighted moving along the beach while we hooted at the moon. 22 July. Continuing the sounding of uncharted areas, the Barb bided her time. The scant 5 days left on our patrol weighed like a 100-pound sack of potatoes on my shoulders. My fingerprints were all over the barometer from shaking it to eliminate this high-pressure area. After lunch, as I caressed it, there was a slight drop. Silently praying, I hopped up to the bridge. "Chuck, how's the weather?" "No change, sir. Calm, one sweater." I scanned the horizon in the hope that there just might be a wisp of stratiform in the white smudge on top of the mountains to the southwest. For half an hour I watched it develop as southerly breezes sprang up, flinging out plumes of cirrus clouds. Following these came a white stratus capping the peaks. I could feel my heart pounding. "Jim, what's the moon for tonight?" "3/4 on the wane, rises at 2100 and sets in the morning." "Why?" "Come take a look." "What do you know? Clouds coming." "Tonight's the night?" "You can bet on it." I pressed the intercom. "Men, we have a stratus moving in that will cover the sky, a moon tonight that will glow above, and a soft breeze. At long last, we have the ideal weather for which we've been waiting 4 days. The saboteur squad will land tonight." Cheers resounded below. "Permission to come up, sir?" It was Swish. "Captain, what you just said hit the boys below like a short circuit. It brought everybody to their feet. Can we splice the main brace when we return?" "This event is as important as a ship sinking, so why not? Actually, you could take beer ashore as a picnic ration, but you would be leaving a clue behind. Certainly no official could object to each man having 1 beer after we sink a ship, the first submarine ballistic missile rocket assault in history, or the smashing of Little Iwo Jima. If I had followed the doctrine of providing each man 2 ounces of booze every time we were depth-charged or bombed, we'd be under the weather at times. So far, in 40 days, each of us has had only 5 beers. I'm sure a 6th would do us good. We need some yeast. Also, I've become superstitious. Every time I've forgotten to put the beer in the cooler before firing, we've had trouble. Swish, put 4 cases in now." Swish hurried away to do my bidding and returned in less than a minute. "Captain, there are already 4 cases in the cooler. Everyone's been so busy with the train attack that the cooks forgot to bake the cake and we forgot to splice the main brace after we sank the frigate." "Blimey, Swish, forget the cake and pass the word to splice the main brace now. We shall not dishonor one of the noble traditions we inherited from the British." As we sipped our cherished single libation after days of patiently waiting and observing, the undercurrent of expected action sweeping through the boat made each man's spine tingle. It struck Kamikaze. Again he pleaded with me to let him join the party, promising not to escape. Again I told him to stay with me. Time 2200. Heading into the drop point, we had a final briefing and I took Walker aside for a private chat. "Bill, avoid trouble. If the spot isn't good or the odds poor, bring the squad back. Watch your men for signs of freezing at their task, not ordinary fear or apprehension. If you find one, escort him back to relieve Newland as boat guard. Keep your men together and quiet going and returning. No unnecessary conversation. All going well, don't get cocky and try something else. I want neither prisoners nor injuries to Japanese except those positively required. Slip in and slip out without being detected. Make sure your group and the boat guards have both meat and liver for any dogs or strays. You have one mission only: booby-trap the train and bring the men back safely. The latter is more important." Flooded down, the deck almost awash, the Barb had a silhouette somewhat similar to that of a schooner or patrol boat. If we were seen from the shore, the rubber boats would not be. No one would suspect a submarine so close to shore or in such shallow water. It was very exciting. In the dim moonlight, the rubber boats were being inflated, equipment was gathered together, and last-minute quiet joshing was well in progress. Time 22:30. "Radar contact. 2 small vessels coming down the coast. All stop." We lay to, tracking them at 5 knots. Time 22:55. "Sir, they're zigging toward us. Ahead 2/3, left full rudder. All hands go quietly to your gun stations, all guns. Do not sound the gongs." We were losing valuable time till they passed clear. 23 July. Time 00:00. In position, 2 fathoms under the keel, twin peaks capped with clouds, shoreline 950 yards. Launch the boats. I had planned to say something apropos of such an operation, like synchronize your watches. Instead, I whispered, "Boys, if you get stuck, head for Siberia 130 miles to the north. Follow the mountain ranges. Good luck and God bless." Shove off." We watched the boats all the way in. Radar easily tracked them by their radar corners. They made a couple of circles and zigs, taking almost half an hour. Momentarily we watched for shots, flares, and a general clamor, but the blackness of the night engulfed everything in a challenging silence. Time 00:25. The boats had been dragged up to the beach. Certainly the Barb could be seen, but not identified. Not a light was visible anywhere. I felt positive that once the initial landing was made unopposed, the rest would go off smoothly. Time 00:47. "Captain, a train is coming up the track." "My God, Max, there are no lights except a rare glimmer from the firebox. White smoke is swirling back. The boys ashore must be in the middle of their digging job. I pray that train doesn't get derailed due to the holes under the track." Crossing my fingers, I held my breath, my imagination running rampant. Not having noticed any trains at night, it had not occurred to us that they could be so perfectly blacked out. Compared to us, the Japanese were past masters at blackout. Trouble for the saboteur squad began as the rubber boats shoved off from the Barb with Bill in the lead boat, Swish following in the second. The twin peaks they expected to use as a reference point vanished in the clouds. The compasses were erratic because of all the metal objects around. They tried to keep a line from the Barb, which they could see, perpendicular to the shoreline. Consequently, they took over twice the time for the transit and landed in the backyard of the first house to the north of the meadow. Fortunately, though the party was only about 50 yards from the house, no dogs put in an appearance. Dog tracks accompanied by barefoot human prints were noticed on the beach. After a short period of huddled reconnaissance, the main party left the boat guards. They proceeded cautiously inland, skirting the house, and arrived at the expected meadow. Only what appeared to be grass when seen through the periscope turned out to be waist-high bulrushes that crunched and crackled with their every move. All shapes took on human forms and scared a few of the party. Arriving at the highway, they held another huddled reconnaissance. All was clear, so Bill dashed across the highway, calling, "Follow me!" He fell headfirst into a 4-foot drainage ditch full of branches. Pulling himself out, he whispered cautions to the men, then ran across the highway and tumbled into yet another ditch. 100 yards farther up, they arrived at the railroad track, reconnoitered, and selected their spot for the charge. The 3 guards were posted, with Markison being told to examine a water tower-like structure down the track. Digging commenced. The pick and shovel striking against the large crushed stone of the railbed clinked and clanked, broadcasting their presence in the eerie hush. They stopped. After a whispered conference, they started digging again with their bare hands, pressing with the implements when needed. Hatfield's ears pricked up. "What's that noise? Someone is running up the track." Hearing no Bob White alert signal, they grabbed their weapons to dispatch the intruder. Swish cautioned, "Take it easy. At this time of night there's no one running up this track except a scared American." Markison appeared, breathless. "Why in the devil didn't you give the alert signal? We could have killed you." "You know, that funny structure I was to check? I climbed the ladder and poked my head over the edge. There's a guy in there asleep. I tiptoed down and ran to tell you it's a lookout tower. My mouth got so dry when I tried to whistle, all that came out was whew, whew." Markison was sent out again to stay well clear. Work recommenced in earnest, progressing nicely except for an occasional whimper, "Ow!" as a fingernail was torn off by the sharp stones. Bill stopped. "I saw a light flash down the track." At Hatfield's direction, everyone pressed an ear to the rail in good frontier fashion. They heard nothing. Must have been someone getting out of bed to have a pee call. Back to work. With the breeze from north to south, the surprise of hearing and seeing an express train roaring down on top of them less than 80 yards away brought panic. Bill jumped clear and into a briar clump, adding more scratches. Swish slid into hiding behind a scrub tree 15 inches high. Hatfield leaped into a shallow foxhole and felt 2 shots hit him as the train roared by with the engineer leaning far out of his cab, looking at them. Thinking this must be it, Hatfield felt his body slowly rising out of the foxhole. The carbon dioxide cartridges on his Mae West life jacket had gone off and inflated the vest. Time 00:52. The passing of the train left some men crossing themselves as others, too, stepped up their faith. Though a bit jumpy, they increased the work pace with more muffled "ows." At the end of the first hour of the operation, Sever and Newland, guarding the boats, were becoming edgy. If the beach patrolman came by every 2 hours, as Kamikaze had said, the odds of his appearance were far greater than 50-50 and increasing. Both had brought welder's gloves, the heaviest on board. Neither having volunteered to approach the dog first if the handler let him loose, a compromise was necessary. Each had his pistol in his right hand and the steak or liver in the left, gloved hand. They would challenge the patrol together. On the Barb there was a sigh of relief as the train went by. Now it was like awaiting the birth of one's offspring. Everyone was pacing the deck. 20 minutes after the train passed, the holes were completed. The scuttling charge and battery were carefully buried and disguised. Hatfield checked the test circuit by depressing the microswitch. "Mr. Walker, I'm all set to wedge up the microswitch and make the final hookup to the charge." The night became melodious with the soft whistles of the whippoorwills and the guards creeping in. Each of the group had been trained for the other's job in case something happened. Now came the moment, with all assembled, to lie down clear and leave Hatfield to make the final connection, alone. Now came the moment when everyone except Hatfield mutinied. All 5, including Bill, decided that they wanted to make sure Hatfield connected the circuit correctly. As they watched over his shoulder, he performed the task perfectly. The charge was now alive, but a discussion started. "Let's see that distance gauge with which you set the microswitch under the rail." Hatfield drew it from his pocket and held it up for all to see. "It sure looks like an awful lot for a rail to sag. Suppose the old man's calculation was wrong and trains go over it and it doesn't explode. He'll never let us come ashore again to move it closer." All nodded in agreement. Klingelsmith straddled the rail and patted the ends of the 2 wedges, moving the live switch closer to the rail. Markison kneeled down with his red flashlight and called out the distance remaining. "About 1/4 of an inch." At that, Hatfield interrupted. "For God's sake, stop it before you blow us all to kingdom come." Bill and Swish agreed. "Head for the beach together." En route through the bulrushes, 2 men got the bright idea that the squad should grab a couple of prisoners or toss a couple of hand grenades into the 2 Toyota trucks back of the house. Bill was ready for that one, simply saying, "Nix. The skipper warned me about you 2. Swish whistled the Bob White alert call about 20 yards from the boats. Newland and Sever replied, relieved. Time 01:32. On the Barb, we muffled our cheers as we saw the blinker signal, ... that indicated that the boats were leaving the beach. Shifting my horseshoe to another pocket, all I could think was, what good luck. I had already eased the Barb in to 600 yards with the sound heads and speed sword arm raised in case trouble arose. Less than a fathom beneath the keel was sufficient. Time 01:45. On the 50 caliber machine gun, Epps yelped, "Captain! Another train coming up the tracks!" The boats were only halfway back. Grabbing a megaphone, I broke the silence. "Paddle like the devil!" Wasted. The boats had already spotted the train. Their paddles churned like egg beaters. The train, streaming white smoke, was getting closer and closer. Any second now. Even the boats stopped to look. What a moment. Our world stopped. Everyone was awestruck with the expectancy of imminent destruction. Time 01:47. Boom! Wham! What a thrill! The flash of the charge exploding changed into a spreading ball of sparkling flame. The boilers of the engine blew. Engine wreckage flying up some 200 feet, racing ahead of a mushroom of smoke, now white, now black. Cars piling up into and over the wall of wreckage in front, rolling off the track in a writhing, twisting maelstrom of Gordian knots. Fires sprinkled among them. Then a gap of seconds before the sounds of the explosions were hurled across the water, sounds of the grinding, snapping, crushing, tortured steel and wood. Stunned, speechless, I began to breathe. Then I grabbed the megaphone and hollered, "Paddle! Paddle! We're leaving! Starboard ahead 1/3, port back 1/3, left full rudder!" The Barb twisted around to head out. Time 01:51. Boats alongside, 100 proud hands hoisted the victorious saboteurs on board and hauled the boats up on deck. The Barb slowly slunk away at 2 knots from her victory over unforeseen odds. The gods were good to us. I could have secured from battle stations, since we would be in water too shallow to dive for a while.
Instead, I said on the intercom, "All hands below deck not absolutely needed to maneuver the ship have permission to come topside through forward and aft deck hatches." The hatches sprang open and men poured forth to gawk. Torpedomen, radiomen, stewards, engineers, cooks, the Barb disgorged her flock. Maneuvering on batteries, only the man on the controllers, the helmsman, and the radar watch in the conning tower remained below. A full-circle binocular sweep showed the Barb to be alone. Ashore, the chaos continued, with lights being turned on in some houses. The lights of an auto coming down the road joined the fires flickering alongside the tracks. Shortly thereafter, military vehicles came racing to the scene with sirens screaming. From macro to micro, our stage disappeared as we pulled away, but never to be forgotten without a flush of pride. Quietly, secure from battle stations, clear the decks and close the hatches when everything is stowed. Set the regular sea detail. Time 02:30. Splice the main brace. Jim looked at me. I thought we would have it with the kick at 1100 this morning. Jim, do you think these tigers are going to bed now? They've got sea stories to tell until their great-great-grandchildren drift off to sleep. Listen to them. The questions will never stop. Time 0400. By now a parody had developed, a takeoff on the song Down in the Valley. This was being sung by the full Barb chorus of saboteurs over the intercom. Naturally, some inspiration came from pharmacist mate Lehman's snakebite cure for stress. Down off Kashi-Ho so shallow, oh, hear that train blow, love, hear the Barb blow, oh. Late in the evening, hear that train blow, so dear to me. The train did stop, love. It did not go through hoo-ah-hoo, ah-hoo-oo. And now it's gone, love, and so are you, hoo-ah-hoo, ah-oo-hoo. The train did blow, love. It blew and blew, hoo-ah-hoo, ah-hoo-hoo. Thank heavens it's gone, love, and so are we, he-ah-hee, ah-hee-yee. That train is gone, love, and out of sight, ah-ite, ah-ite. Good night, my darling. Darling, good night, ah-ite, ah-ite. Good night. With one last shout, hear the Barb blow, they spliced the main brace and turned in, exhausted, to dream of their loves. Chapter 28. Countdown to Graduation. 23 July. Time 11:15. Brunch over, I gathered the officers together for a conference. Now that the train job is history, we only have the rest of today, the 24th and the 25th. Then Barb must be through Kunashiri Strait by midnight the 26th. Our priority now is Shiratori, where we'll reconnoiter for a triple rocket massage. Following that, we lay a single massage on Kashi-Ho to finish off the last of our rockets. That accomplished, there are the large fish canneries at Chiri on the northeast leg of Patience Bay to bombard. Then we must head for Kunashiri to depart at the time granted by our extension. Chiri will finish off the rest of our 5-inch ammunition. Questions? Max expressed some minor doubts. Quite a full schedule. We'll have to clobber one a day to meet it, in addition to the normal Barb philosophy to expect the unexpected. We really ought to hold back a bit on some of the smaller ammunition to have a modicum of self-defense with no torpedoes. Max is right. Meeting's over. The Barb submerged off Shiratori in the late afternoon. Our reconnaissance was postponed due to haze. No rockets this night. At least that's what I thought. Late that afternoon at Admiral Nimitz's headquarters in Guam, a courier plane had just arrived from the States. His orderly met the plane, signed for his mail, and begged the latest copy of a San Francisco newspaper from the pilot. This went immediately to the Admiral. Nimitz took a hard look at the front page, then sent for Admiral Lockwood. Charlie, I've had enough trouble with the reporters hinting that I am lying about the attacks and movements of the Third Fleet. Look at this. Front page center lay a map of Japan from Kamchatka to Okinawa. An inch-wide arrow swung out of the Pacific. It split at Kunashiri Strait, with nearly half its width swinging off into the Sea of Okhotsk toward Karafuto. The other part passed down eastern Japan. He pointed to the lead column, the deepest penetration of Japanese waters yet by a section of Halsey's fleet. Nimitz smirked. Lockwood frowned. The article went on to say Tokyo Radio had previously reported that the north coast of Hokkaido was preparing for an invasion. Meanwhile, the attacks continued.
On 18 July, the frigate 112, under the command of Captain Ishiwata, was sunk by torpedo about noon while escorting the ferry boat Soya Maru. The fortress of Nishinatoro fired cannons and 3 Navy warships went to mop up the sea, but the effects were unknown. Fleet Admiral Nimitz had no comment. "It must be Barb, Chester. Charlie, find out what she's doing." From Com Subpack to Barb, X. Eyes only, Fluckey, X. What are you doing, X? Open up and give us the details, X. Jim, take a gander at this rocket that I must answer. What's up, Captain? The problem is not what we've done since our last message. What scares me is the logistic report required at the end of all our messages. When Uncle Charlie sees torpedo 0, it'll set off his alarm bell. He'll think that Barb is defenseless. 24 July. Time 12:19. We submerged and worked in close to Shiratori, happy with the cloud cover far above. A close look, with only a smidgen of water beneath the keel, proved not only that Dave had become an outstanding diving officer, but also that Shiratori was an ideal target with huge factories. One chimney disappeared in the clouds. Using the ST radar in the periscope to obtain its exact range and the linear divisions of the exit eyepiece, I calculated the height to be better than 400 feet. Radar technicians Lehman and Mayer checked radar's pip to use it in conjunction with the data computer for the attack. Now we could get an accurate fix that would ensure our smacking the largest factories. Time 1934. Well out of sight and overjoyed with our key find of that chimney, the Barb surfaced. Everyone was eager to get on with the night's work. We were no sooner up and starting supper than Gearhart handed me 2 messages. I read them aloud. From Com Subpack Action Barb Info Barnstormers X. Com Subpack's hearty congratulations Fluckey upon sinking frigate and destroying track and train X. Depart area and proceed midway X. Damn it, I knew this would happen. He's already given Barb's area away to the Barnstormers Wolfpack on the polar circuit. Captain, he's ordered us out. Do we secure now and set course for Kunashiri Strait, or will you go ahead with the attack plan for tonight? You bet your boots we will, Jim. Are you going to disobey the Admiral's orders? No, it's not disobedience. He didn't specify the route we were to take to depart. So we depart down this western coast. To expedite, we'll rocket Shiratori just after dark, then proceed at flank speed down the coast and rocket Kashiho before dawn. From there, we skid across the bay to bombard Chiri. After that, I'd like one more crack at luring a single minefield frigate into deep water. Then we'll head for Kunashiri to leave the Sea of Okhotsk. Jim, did I ever tell you that the Russian word Okhotsk means hunter? Though they probably were referring to seals, that's still our job, and we're going to hunt as long as we can. Oh, I guess one can call some of this sea lawyering, but previously Lockwood did give us an extension to 2400 on the 26th of July. How about the other message? It's just the nightly news. Here, read it. Daily Scuttlebutt, X. Barb reports sinking 1 frigate and blowing up 1 choo-choo train with landing party and own demolition team put ashore, X. Sea Robin reports 2 ammunition-loaded sea trucks and 2 luggers joined their sister ships on the bottom of the sea, X. Runner and Gunnel arrived Guam, X. Time 21:17. Man battle stations rockets. Tom, while we are easing into Shiratori, I'll go below to check the chart. The Japanese charts we recovered are invaluable. The one for this area has an enlarged insert, including the factory district plan. Below, Jim and Higgins were all set. The navigational plot aligned exactly with the chimney, and Jack's attack plot was also exact. With visibility decreasing, the Barb snuggled silently into position at slow speed on her batteries. On my way to the bridge, Max gave me the thumbs-up sign that the rockets were ready. I'll stop. Tom? Sir, I can barely make out that chimney. Forget it. We've a beautiful picture on radar. Jim, let me know when we're 5,100 yards from the chimney. Max, put us on the launching course. Captain, don't forget that we're launching at maximum range, so we have to steer 3 degrees left of target to allow for the right drift of the rockets. Understood. We only have 4 fathoms of water now. Any closer than that 5,100-yard range on the chimney and we touch bottom. Yell when you're ready. Set. Time 22:36. Rockets away! The first batch of 12 went swishing out on their way to the biggest factory. Reload! 30 seconds later they landed, sounding like bombs. 3 minutes later the second batch zoomed off, landing with heavy explosions. We reloaded once more and twisted the ship slightly to get the town hall and large factory. The third batch went in a flash to turn the town upside down. Secured from battle stations, we left the launcher set up and set course for Kashiho, where, offshore, the Barb had had her ears pinned back by that terrible Teretsuki-class destroyer. Time 23:10. Lookout Parker cried out, "Captain, 2 large fires just broke out back at Shiratori." Muffled explosions were ripping the factories apart. "Brooks, come right in reverse course. We can't miss this. Fire's our most destructive agent ashore." More fires started. Many more explosions shot flames up into the heavy overcast. "Willie, pass the word to open the forward and afterdeck hatches. Permission is granted for all to come up on deck to enjoy and witness the effect of the rockets. Shift propulsion to the batteries." Now back only 4,000 yards from the shore, Willie circled the Barb at slow speed while fires spread amid continuing explosions. We gawked, feeling a bit heroic and Neronian at the same time. Time 23:50. "Captain, we must get moving for Kashiho to attack before dawn." "Thanks for waking me up, Jim. Fire is the answer. Look at its spread." "I know. I've measured its breadth parallel to the coast. Nearly 3 miles of buildings aflame." "Wow." "Men, clear the decks quietly and close the hatches. As soon as you're clear, flank speed coming up." 25 July. Time 02:24. "Man battle stations rockets." Visibility being reduced to about 6,000 yards and water shoaling fast caused a bit of a delay as dawn approached. Finally, the Barb stood still long enough to hiccup her rockets at 03:10. Through my Polaroid goggles, I watched the flash as each rocket slid down the pipe rack onto the needle-sharp firing pin, igniting the powder to blast off. The flare died about 10 feet above me in a diminutive shower of sparks. Each took an explosive charge ashore more than double that of a 5-inch shell. The Barb and her crew stood still, breathlessly waiting for the 30-second voyage in space to terminate in the rolling thunder of falling bombs. When it came, buildings blew, but there were no fires. Jim set course for Shiratori to review our damage. Securing from battle stations, we felt a bit sad. That ugly pipe rack rocket launcher had touched our lives like a stray, hungry mutt that one adopts. Max and I had often watched Swish with his emery cloth rubbing and honing the firing needle pin to remove rust and to sharpen it. As Max said, the way Swish caresses it, you'd think it was alive. I regretted knowing I had given my last order forever of rockets away. Nara Katsumasa, a provost corporal who worked for the Shikuka division of the police force, filed this report. Military strategy in Karafudo is changing from anti-USSR to anti-USA. Several incidents taking place have indicated the coming of a USA attack, though only a few were informed of this. The bombardment of Kyoto Island for 5 hours without a stop, Shikuka attacked by 5 enemy ships, and the blasting of the freight train are cause for alarm. I was working at the Shikuka airbase. When the ice in the Sea of Okhotsk began melting, enemy submarines frequently approached along the coastline. The torpedo planes continued searching along the coastal line but could not find them. One day I joined the searching flight but did not find any. About that time, the nearby Shiratori Police Center sent information that there was a possible spy on land. So I took one of my men with me to help them. Judging from the fact that the enemy submarines never missed their target from the first firing, possibly a spy communicated to the submarines. Last night, a civilian reported that he witnessed an exchange of light signals between the mountains and the sea. The 2 signalers said there was going to be an attack soon. Tonight we returned to our inn. After we finished our dinner, we heard a sound like thunder over our heads. We immediately went out. They bombed the gasoline storage of the Oji paper factory, the largest in Japan, in Shiratori. Then the gasoline drums started exploding. The firemen could not stop the fire from spreading. I thought, I will catch the spy. I watched the people on the spot carefully. Then, thinking that the spy would escape to the sea after the second bombing, I ran toward the wharf along the railroad. From the tracks we moved toward the beach. Crouched and looking around, we saw a small glowing ember in the darkness 30 meters ahead. It looked as if someone was smoking a cigarette. We thought that must be him and pulled out our pistols. We went close, within 10 meters from the ember, which suddenly became brighter and larger, and the next moment very weak, as if he were exhaling a cigarette. We heard nothing but the sound of the waves. Holding the pistols on our eye level and aiming at the bright ember, I yelled, "Who is there?" There was no response. The flame did not move. Next I tried a body crash, but instead I landed in the sand. Just an ember fanned by the sea breeze. We were totally dumbfounded. Time 04:45. The Barb sat 6,000 yards off Shiratori again. For the last 45 minutes we had been in a heavy smog. 5 miles south of the town we began hearing continual light and heavy explosions similar to those we heard 7 hours previously. The smoke was now thicker, heavy with the odor of burning wood and paper. Unfortunately, visibility was about 50 yards, so we couldn't assess the damage. A sudden loud blast and rumbling explosion shook us, driving the crew out of their bunks. I explained the circumstances over the intercom to allay any misgivings. Some thought we were being bombed or depth-charged on the surface. Cheers resulted, though men were coughing due to the smoke. "Jim, no use staying here. Set course across to Chiri." Time 09:46. "Man battle station's guns." Visibility increasing, Singer had sighted a large sampan. Time 09:59. 40mm gun, commence firing." In jig time, the sampan crew abandoned ship. "Away the boarding party!" Tom and his group scrambled aboard as the Barb drew alongside. One Japanese volunteered to come aboard as a prisoner. The others took to their rowboat as we were only 4,000 yards offshore. The boarding party snooped into everything. Swish took their steering wheel. Klingelsmith and Petrasunas passed 3 anchors over to the Barb. Tom picked up some snow crabs for supper. Another brought signal flags and the company flag. In half an hour I welcomed Tom back aboard. 9 down, 6 to go. Backing clear, we sank her with 1 5-inch shell. These single shots at the waterline from 100 yards saved a lot of ammunition. "Swish, as soon as you have the 5-inch gun secured, have Doc Lehman bathe, disinfect, and check the prisoner for any diseases. When he's finished, bring him to the wardroom for questioning. I want to ask him about Chiri. We'll be bombarding in about 2 hours. When the prisoner arrived, our linguistic tussle commenced. Evidently, he wasn't married. He claimed that he was a slave to the cannery company to which he had originally been indentured for 10 years, but they wouldn't let him go home. This could be false, yet he was older and happy to be on board. Breaking out a Japanese chart of Patience Bay, I asked him if he had heard of any train wrecks lately. He nodded and put his forefinger on the exact spot. 2 nights ago, enemy aircraft bombed train, kill 150 men. Right there, say local news sheet. Our aircraft got the credit again, but my primary interest lay in the type of defenses around Chiri. We started to develop this when... Time 12:08. "Captain, we've sighted the mass of a sampan toward Chiri and another farther down the coast. I'm heading for her." "Good, Dave. I'll be up in a minute." We finally elicited from our prisoner that there were no guns larger than 37mm, but there were some 15 seaplanes. These pontoon planes, he said, were based at the lake close inland from Chiri. I had my doubts, but to play it safe we would remain outside of 15 fathoms for the bombardment. Time 12:26. "Man battle station's guns." Tom took over the watch from Dave as we approached the sampan in Chiri. "Sir, I can see the sampan before it sinks. 10 down, 5 to go." 10 minutes later, we opened fire with the 40mm gun, which stopped her. The 5-inch gun then fired a single shot at the waterline, and she went under. "Well done, Max. Now eliminate the cannery." "Aye, sir. Swish. Shift the pointer and trainer right to the powerhouse. It's the smaller building with the chimney. When I check fire, move them left to the adjacent largest building. After each is demolished, move up the row. Resume firing." With that, the 5-inch gun poured 43 rounds into the cannery. Sections of buildings blew up and large holes were created, but no fires. Incendiary ammunition is a must. We ceased fire when our 5-inch high-capacity ammunition was down to 5 shells. At the bottom of the magazine we found 3 star shells. Someone's bright idea. They have no explosive, and the last thing a submarine needs is to illuminate herself at night. Time 12:50. "Gun station secure and stand by below. There may be some planes nearby. We're going after a sampan returning up the coast." Time 13:14. The sampan sank as Tom croaked, 11 down, 4 to go. "Tom, I'm going below for a bite to eat. It's your regular watch now. Find me 4 more sampans to secure our bet, and I'll send you up a sandwich and some ice cream. Otherwise, you can starve." "Aye, Captain Bligh, sir." In the wardroom, Willie was chuckling over the dispatch I had sent to ComSubPac that morning at 02:14 after our successful attack on Shiratori, providing the how, where, why, what, and when they had requested to outfit other subs with rockets. It also detailed the mischief we had done. "Captain, you recommended a big order, 1,000 rockets with a range of 8,000 yards to displace most of the torpedoes. Golly, we could rip up the coast with that quantity. Your last sentence is a beaut. Don't believe the rocket will replace the torpedo any more than the auto replaced the horse, but they are definitely here to stay, and fun besides. X." Will that get you in trouble? Willie, remember this. The truth can't be broken, but it can be warped. Perhaps it will wake up someone who can make decisions. We shall see. Time 13:34. "Captain, we've sighted a lone sampan and 2 more returning to the cannery. One of the latter has the other in tow. Coming up, Tom. You've practically done yourself in. Your reward is on its way. Raglan, please bring a couple of tuna sandwiches and 2 soup bowls of ice cream to the bridge before you man your gun station." Time 13:50. "Man battle station's guns. Ahead flank." Between munches on my sandwich, I apologized for giving orders with food in my mouth, but we had to hurry before the sampan and her tow beached. "Jim, Max, Tom, forget the lone sampan. She's outboard of us. Use the 40mm gun to clear the deck of any opposition from the towing sampan. Then put in a waterline shot to sink her. With luck, if the tow line doesn't part, she might drag her tow down with her. This'll save us ammunition. If not, use the same system to finish her off." Time 13:55. "Commence firing." Within a minute of the waterline coup de grace, the target sank and snapped the tow line. I taunted Tom, 12 down, 3 to go. Max shifted fire to the towed sampan, which stubbornly refused to sink. The 5-inch star shell passed right through, leaving a clean round hole 6 inches above the waterline. Our last 3 high-capacity shells finally put her under. 13 down, 2 to go. Let's go to flank speed and catch the last sampan. Time 14:13. The last sampan submerged with our last 2 star shells drilling waterline holes in her hull. We secured from battle stations with nothing in sight. Swish and Petrasunas, our 5-inch gun captain and pointer, patted the gun fondly as they retired it until midway, all ammunition having been expended. Tom whimpered, 14 down, 1 to go. "Where to now, boss?" "Jim, Kayoto is only 30 miles southeast of here. Let's take a look at the reconstruction." Fleet Admiral Nimitz called Admiral Lockwood in again. "Charlie, the reporters are giving me a fit. Radio Tokyo reported the bombing of Barb's train and the bombing of Shiratori and a smaller town to the south. I thought Barb left the area. She's upstaging Halsey. Just between us. That's hard to do. Chester, I ordered him to depart his area 2 days ago. He did send a message yesterday giving the details we had previously requested concerning their rocket attacks. We believe he's on to a good thing. Following up on his advice, 15 subs are being fitted out with rockets." "Splendid. Still, he may not have received your orders. With no torpedoes, he should leave. Give him a prod." From ComSubPac to Barb, X. Eyes only and action Fluckey, X. You come home, X. Acknowledge, X. Being in the same time zone as Guam, the Barb received this before we arrived off Kayoto. I replied, Barb to ComSubPac X, acknowledging X, busy departure day, X. 25 July at 0310 gave final rocket massage to factories in Kashiho, X. At 0500 attempted review damaged Shiratori, much fog and smoke. Assorted light and heavy explosions sporadically continued, perhaps hit jackpot, X. At 12:35 bombarded canneries at Chiri, X. Sank 7 more diesel sampans, X. New prisoner says local Jap newspaper stated our train destroyed by plane bomb, 150 men, women, and children killed, X. Latter probably propaganda. Anti-USA, X. He says troops only travel at night, X. Observation of Kayoto on the surface revealed that only 2 buildings had been patched. The place was still in ruins with over half the buildings wiped out by the fires. Headed south to leave our area via the minefields and the north coast of Hokkaido, we hoped to entice a frigate out. After supper, I was giving advice to a lovelorn officer, Jack Sheffield. Married to a lovely gal, he was leaving the Navy after the war. The separations of Navy life were not for them. They would move to California and set up his business, but first he wanted to take his wife on a second honeymoon. He knew that I had married there. Jack, pre-war times were a bit tougher. I did borrow enough money, however, to take my bride honeymooning at Lake Arrowhead Lodge in the San Bernardino Mountains. It's a beautiful vacation spot, well laced with movie stars and starlets. Phoning to reserve, I asked for a room with a double bed. The only cancellation available had twin beds. I complained to the clerk. He gave in and said they would substitute a double. It was a lot of fun there in the rustic wilds, but with one oddity. When you went down to breakfast, you had to leave the doors open for the rooms to be made up. All the stars passing by always peered into our room. The last night there, the ballroom was open for dancing. Marjorie and I were dancing when the music stopped for an announcement. The orchestra wishes to dedicate the anniversary waltz to our newlyweds, Ensign and Mrs. Fluckey. Will the other guests please leave the dance floor while we honor them? We were embarrassed because we thought we had been acting like an old married couple. After ages, the music ceased. We crept sheepishly back to our table with a starlet couple. Marjorie asked, "How did they know?" The starlets replied, "No, you have the only room in the lodge with a double bed. Everyone here has seen it and has been badgering the management. Their answer is that they had to truck that double bed all the way up the mountain from San Bernardino at your insistence, and they don't intend to redo every room in the lodge. So, Jack, don't expect a double bed." Time 2040. "Captain, we've run into a heavy fog. This will scotch your plans for another frigate. Recommend we head for Kunashiri, though we will arrive there in the morning and won't be able to transit the strait." "Concur, Jim. Do so." Gearhart entered with the nightly news from ComSubpac. Diurnal chatter, X. Whale and scabbardfish each retrieved 1 aviator while Toro picked up 3 Britishers, X. Barb continued coastal depredations with rocket treatment to factories at Kashiho and bombardment of canneries at Chiri, repeat Chiri, X. Believes hit jackpot at Shiratori because over 30 hours after rocketing, light and heavy explosions are continuing with much smoke, X. Jap prisoner reports Nips believe plane blew up train, X. Also sank 7 sampans for diversion, X. Zero arrived midway, X. Having read it aloud to the officers present, I yawned. It's too bad the Wolfpacks can't find something. Fellows, let's hit the hay and rest up. If this fog breaks, tomorrow will be a busy day. We'll sweep the west coast of Kunashiri Island for canneries and sampans. It's probably undefended. 26 July. Habitually, I was on the bridge a half hour before sunrise in what I know is the most beautiful part of the day. Yet to me it was also the most dangerous time for a sub on the surface. The watch was sleepy, their blood pressure low. The kaleidoscope of colored shadows was befuddling, and the white-hot intensity of the light at sunrise blinding. An enemy periscope or a plane skipping from cloud to cloud could go unnoticed. I, on the other hand, was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed from my rest. Our last dawn in the area had us mummified in a cold, dripping shroud of fog. We kept our binoculars tucked inside our foul-weather jackets and depended on our radar and sonar to keep the unseen enemy at arm's length. Time 11:30. Captain, we've rounded Shiratoku Masaki. The fog is behind us. I can see the mountains on Hokkaido and on Kunashiri. Great, Dave. Close the coast to 2,000 yards. All officers studied the chart on the wardroom table. Sure, we'll be seen, but we've got 15 fathoms. Let's go. Sweeping close enough in that we could wave at a few inhabitants on Kunashiri, we passed several small villages and pipsqueak fishing stations. Our Japanese charts gave promise of something at Shibutoro in 20-mile-wide Nemuro Strait. I counted on Admiral Halsey having eliminated nearby planes. Time 14:35. We positioned lots of lookouts topside, but Bluth on the high periscope won the prize. "Cannery dead ahead, headed to be dead." His boss, Higgins, cracked back, "What a deadhead." "Looks good, Max. Not a cannery, though. Lumber mill with a single tall black stack. There are 3 huge buildings and many smaller houses and shacks. To the right and toward the beach is a sampan building yard with 16 rectangular box-like cradles on tracks that run into the water. To the left of the cradles are neat rows of brand-new sampans. Sir, I can count 26 there, probably more behind them. Then look to the right. 17 more in 3 rows, 3 buildings behind them, and lumber piles to the right. Some are hard to see. Those large fir tree branches are scattered over everything." "Keep counting, Willie. All cradles are full.
Dave added, "Those branches are for camouflage from aircraft. Despite all the strikes, this place is untouched. It fooled Halsey." "Captain, battle stations?" "Not yet, Jim. Ahead flank. Shankles, come right 10 degrees. "We're leaving?" "No, Jim. Just a high-speed sweep by to draw any opposing fire. All we have is the 40mm gun." None came. "Reverse course." Time 15:02. "Man battle stations guns." "Tom, have Ragland and Cole put the last 4 cases of beer in the cooler. This is a valuable target. Though we lack big ammunition, I feel lucky today." "Aye, sir. Don't forget that these sampans are destructible, but non-sinkable. They don't count for that last one you lack to win our bet." Max lowered his binoculars. "I've found their assembly line system. They build the hull in the cradle, slide the cradle into the water for launching, then bring the sampan back up on rollers to install the engines and topside. When we shoot, Max, put the 40mm on the powerhouse with the smokestack. After the initial burst with the twin 20mm guns, pepper the general area to keep individuals from responding with any small-caliber weapons. At 2,000 yards, you can start." "Ready now, sir." "I'll stop. Commence firing." Within 2 minutes, a fortunate 40mm shell missing the powerhouse lobbed over and landed in a fuel tank behind. It caught fire and exploded, spreading the fire everywhere. Firefighting squads appeared with hoses. Bursts of 20mm fire forced them to drop everything and flee into the forest above. Meanwhile, the 40mm kept pounding away at machine shops, cradles, and any structure of importance. The mill was now a blazing inferno. Time and again, firefighters tried to stop the rapidly spreading blaze that consumed everything. Our gunners, admiring their courage, peppered close enough to drive them back without killing them. I never saw a Japanese even wounded. Now out of 40mm shells, we waited. In the face of our peppering bursts, an older man appeared, stripped down to the waist, walking down to the beach with 2 buckets. Max called out, "Check fire all guns!" Everyone watched him. He must have been the owner. At the water's edge he stopped, shook his clenched fist at us, then filled his buckets. Turning around, he slowly walked back toward the mill, stooped over from the weight of the buckets. Suddenly he stopped, dropped both buckets, looked at the Holocaust, then turned and faced us again. Looking at us, he threw up his arms in hopeless grief, his lifetime's work shattered in 30 stinking minutes. Turning once more, his shoulders stooped, his spirit broken, he wobbled up the path and into the forest. I could almost feel his tears running down my cheeks. Or were they mine? War is such hell. Time 16:30. "Captain, there's a ship on the horizon coming up Namuro Strait. She's turning toward us. Looks like a trawler. Must have seen the smoke and is coming to investigate. She was headed for Hokkaido." "Good work, Don. How come you're a lookout again?" "No torpedoes, no battle station. I'm enjoying it." "Welcome back. Max, secure the 40mm gun. Tom, head for the trawler. Swish, what else are you hiding in your locker besides hand grenades? We need to sink this trawler." "There's a case of rifle grenades, Captain. Break them out. She's our 15th and must not escape." Time 16:56. "Commence firing." The automatic weapons opened up at 400 yards as we swept by. The trawler had a 25mm gun, larger than our 20mm, but quickly abandoned it. As we turned to come back, Swish was ready with his rifle grenades. He fired 18, yet only 3 penetrated the hull, making small holes about an inch in diameter. Each one exploded against the tough hull with little effect. This amazed me. When our boarding party was trained by the Marines at Midway, I saw this same type grenade rip through large timbers and even through 8 inches of reinforced concrete.
baffling. It appeared the only way to sink this trawler would be to board and break some seacock. Tom's men could be ready in 5 minutes. In the interval, a fire broke out on board, and her crew abandoned ship. We picked up 2 volunteer prisoners, seized fire, and let her burn. Certain that she would sink, the Barb left this column of black smoke and trekked back 4 miles to the smoking inferno ashore. Time 1815. The fires had done our work for us. All buildings were nearly leveled, leaving the tall stack standing alone, red-hot. The sampans to the left were completely destroyed. A fire had broken out to the right of the cradles in the lumber piles. The dry camouflage branches and the rising wind helped enormously, spreading the flames toward the remaining 17 sampans and cradles. A bucket brigade on the beach fled our final burst of 20-millimeter fire. Time 1845. Firefighting attempts having ceased ashore, the Barb returned to her trawler. En route we saw and heard several oil explosions on board. These had no other effect. Tom was quiet, not offering to grant me my inevitable win on our bet. Swish finished off all his rifle grenades with no results. Our remaining machine gun ammunition would be wasted on this rugged hull, so we waited, unable to board. An hour later, Max remarked, "I do believe this trawler is so tough she'll burn all night." I agreed. Tom smiled. Time 1950. Send Singer to the bridge with his movie camera. Men, this trawler appears capable of burning till tomorrow, and Barb is required to transit the strait at midnight. Our only recourse is to ram. Do not be alarmed. When the collision alarm is sounded, lock the forward torpedo room watertight door. Leave all other doors on the latch. Tom responded, "Captain, you can't ram. You'll damage the superstructure shutters of the torpedo tubes." Singer arrived and climbed up on the shears. "Camera is ready, sir." "Tom, I relieve you of the con just in case your right in the bow is damaged. Besides, you might collide too softly and have that trawler stuck on our bow for days. To rub your nose in it, however, I'll give you the honor of participating. Sound the collision alarm." Tom grinned and did so. The sirens below wailed. The bridge hatch slammed shut. In seconds, Jim reported, "Ship rigged for collision." "Shankles, come left to course 242 degrees, all ahead 1/3. Maneuvering room, make turns for 7 knots. Without a waver, the Barb turned in to ram. It seemed like driving a car into a burning garage. The radiating heat put a glow on our faces. "Come right a hair. Make it 243 degrees. We're coming into ram from upwind. Make it 244 degrees. 20 yards to go. Hold her tight, Shankles." Pressing the intercom, I shouted, "Stand by! Hold on! Here we go!" Bam! The Barb shuddered. "The bow hit. We're riding up on her. Her starboard side is caving in as she rolls toward us. All back full. She's sinking stern first. Watch out topside." Her foremast snapped across the bow, sending things flying. "She's gone. Sunk. We are clear. All stop, secure from collision. Let's have Bill, Swish, Parker, Miller, and Arthur on deck to check the shutters." Tom was a good sport. He walked over, raised my hand on high, and shouted, "The winner, and we're still alive. 15 down and 0 to go. Captain, the bet was worth it just for this unforgettable moment. Permit me to say, well done." We flooded down aft to lift the bow high. Max joined in the shutters check. When he returned to the bridge, he reported, "No apparent damage to bow or shutters other than some paint scraped off. They checked mechanically on opening and closing, so no warps or bends." "Thanks, Max. One fire extinguished. Let's return to the other." Time 20:30. Lying to offshore. The moon rose like a moldy lemon through the heat waves. As darkness fell, the flames licked hungrily throughout the area, finally reaching the last group of sampans and the 16 building cradles. So far, 35 sampans had burned. The fire was licking its chops over the last 8, spanking new, fresh out of their cradles. In another hour, the cradles, too, with their 16 unlaunched sampans, would be ashes. The sing-song crackle of flaming wood and fir branches strummed a lullaby. The Barb would claim only the 35 she had witnessed burning, but the true total would be an astounding 59.